The time being 8:30, I'm going to call this meeting to order. Can we have a roll call, please?
Tracy Von Bergen.
Here.
John Young.
Here.
Pamela Altoff.
Here.
Kelly Wagner. Here. Shirley Campbell.
Here.
Thomas Bulbeck. Bob Nowak.
Here.
Jeffrey Thorson.
Here. All right, has everybody had an opportunity to review the minutes?
Yes.
And will somebody bring forward a motion?
I'll make a motion. I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second to approve the minutes. Any discussion? There being none, by voice acclamation, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, this is the time we set aside for public comment. Do we have anybody for public comment today?
Nobody on the list.
Nobody's on the list, okay. Members' comments? No members' comments. Before we get to the new business, out of order, I would ask the committee, if it's all right with them, to take the clerk's, the circuit clerk's budget and the coroner's budget out of order so that they can get back to work. Everybody in favor of that?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, we have consensus. I'll start with the clerk.
All right, well, thanks for letting us go first today. I've got a statutory court fee task force public hearing that's being held this morning. I was hoping to get back before that actually started. But, so let me just introduce who I have with me here today. I've got Robin Shetley, my chief deputy, and Laura Hart, who's my office accountant. We helped me put the budget together, so we'll try to make it quick. So just kind of generally, the circuit clerk's office, we're the record keeper for the court system. We've got 54 full-time equivalents. We haven't had 54 people in the office for quite some time. We've definitely not been running at a full staff for quite some time due to hiring issues, some other issues I'll talk about as we go on. But most of our employees are represented by AFSCME. Our current AFSCME contract is expiring the end of November, so we've just begun negotiations for our new contract. So generally, we've got customer service counters on our first and third floors where we take payments. We assist people in our viewing rooms who are electronically filing. Up on the third floor, they're electronically filing for orders of protection. We take about 250 to 350 phone calls a day, filed about 42,000 cases last year, and we filed about 500,000 documents last year annually. Luckily, most of those are filed electronically nowadays, which is a huge time saver. So the 22nd Circuit has 18 courtrooms, so we're required to provide clerks for morning and afternoon calls in those 18 courtrooms. Some courtrooms, typically the criminal courtrooms, we supply 2 clerks to because of the volume. And currently, we've got bond court, which is held on Saturday mornings and most holidays. So our 2022 highlights, the biggest highlight was we did finally eliminate all of our paper files. I know every year I've been telling you, that we've been chipping away at the case types. So 2022 was the first year we did not order any paper files at all. So all of our case types are all being stored electronically, which is a huge step and definitely gradually has saved us a lot of money over the years as we've transitioned to that. We've been the file destruction and verification project we started working on during COVID, plus then added some ARPA funds we were given to assist with that project. We've so far removed about 6,500 boxes from county archives. And with our electronic record now, we're not adding any new boxes to archives. So literally, we're still working on this gradual project to get all of our old files where we're able to destroy them. Some require scanning or microfilming before they can be destroyed. But we're not sending anything new because everything we do is either electronic, and the little bit of manual paper that we do have to, because we are still getting some things in the courtrooms do still get some things on paper that we're able to keep in the office and just kind of destroy ourselves on a regular basis. So that project will continue, but we've been made some good headway. That ARPA funding definitely assisted us really chip away at more than we've been able to do ourselves in recent years. So we've got a new e-citation vendor. We're hoping to roll that out to all the county agencies probably by end of October, I guess is our goal. We've expanded with the assistance of the state's attorney's office. We've expanded our electronic arrest warrant and criminal complaint program to most agencies in the county, which is a great time saver. Much more the data accuracy and efficiency is just huge with those type of programs. So we've expanded that throughout the county. And then in September, we're holding our first Amnesty Week along with our collection agency. So it's an Amnesty Week where you can pay your balances free of like the collection interest and fees that you would normally do. A lot of the bigger counties have been doing this for quite a few years. This will be the first time we've tried it. So we'll see if we get any interest in it. If there's any interest in paying off their balance, they can avoid paying all those fees.
We should use traditional media in marketing that, or?
We did a press release. We're gonna try to do another. I don't think it got really a whole lot of interest. I think it might have hit the Woodstock Independent, but I think we'll try another one once it gets a little closer. It was a little further out. Maybe once it's closer, we could actually get someone to actually publish our press release.
What's the week?
It's the week after Labor Day. So I think that week after Labor Day is the week that they can do it.
I'd like to let the record reflect that Tom has entered the meeting. Thank you.
Our goals for 2023 then, we're going to be redeveloping our website, both our website and the 22nd Circuit Court's website, kind of in conjunction. We're going to use the same vendor that the Sheriff's Department used to redevelop theirs maybe a year or two ago, just looking to make it more user-friendly, more so that it works better on mobile devices, that type of thing. Just really, it could use some revamping. It gets a lot of use. We have a lot of stuff on our website, but it's not super easy to find things. We're going to be remodeling our third floor customer service area. So we've got a project we put together using our Circuit Clerk Operation Administration Fund that we've been saving for a few years. So our third floor office, which is generally where we're handling the orders of protection. We're going to redevelop it to look a little bit more like our first floor, where it's sealed and enclosed with glass, so to increase not only the safety in our office, but even you just say like germ safety. Our first floor office really worked well. Not only is it safe because it's all enclosed in glass, but during the COVID years, basically, it really worked out well for us. So we're going to do something similar with that third floor office. We thought it was going to be a little sooner, but unfortunately we need some doors, and it's going to be 20 weeks just to get the doors. So we'll probably be bringing that project to you in September, but they say it's not actually going to start until sometime in February because it needs all this lead time to get the couple of doors that we needed. And part of that project then, we're going to take some unused old counter space, a counter that in our 356 office that we haven't used in a number of years. Once we started e-filing and we didn't need all that space that we used to take paper civil documents, and we're going to turn that into some additional hallway-facing conference rooms that Turning Point will use. So Turning Point has, this is all right around where the order protections are electronically filed. And so Turning Point has a couple of small offices, but we've really been, for whatever reason, seeing a lot of increases in orders of protection, and they could really use some more meeting space. So we're going to turn that space, really it's not going to be super difficult, it just needs some walls and some doors. It seems like the doors are the most difficult part, but some hallway spacing conference rooms that they'll be able to use then to meet with their clients. And they're a huge help to us because statutorily then, if they weren't assisting with the orders of protection, the circuit clerk then is required to assist with the completion of the filing for petitions. petitions for order protection, so they're a huge help to us. So that's part of our remodel plan that we've got, which looks like it probably won't actually happen until February of next year. So we will be negotiating our ASME agreement, which is ending at the end of the year. And then another one of our goals is to increase our employee recruitment and retention rates. And so those last two kind of go hand in hand. This spring, the rate in our current contract, our starting rate is $15.50 an hour, and you can imagine we weren't able to hire pretty much anybody at $15.50 an hour. So we did a memorandum of understanding with ASME in the spring, and I think about May 1st, we increased our starting rate to $16.57 an hour, and just about everybody in the unit got $1 at that point. But even at $16.57 an hour, we're not getting a lot of applications. We currently have, I think we've lost 12 people since January 1st, so for the size of our office, that's more than 20% of our staff. We're currently, I think 6. I think we've got 6 open positions right now. We've lost people. I mean, generally we're losing people to a lot of these offices right over here. And they know who they are. And, but we really do need to, at least, as part of our contract negotiations, we need to be competitive even in our own building. We need to get to the point where we're competitive in our own building. So that's definitely going to be our, one of our goals.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, yeah.
What do you see that level being? I mean,
I feel like we're losing people who are to the $19, $20 range,
Okay.
So I do feel like that's consistently, and some even, more. We've lost people to village police records departments, making over 20 to start, 21, 22. We've lost to villages, the village of Fontana. We've lost to Turning Point, which I thought, we've lost a couple to Turning Point, so it's sort of sad when we're actually losing to the nonprofits. We've lost to just about every department in the building. So I do feel like...
Well, there's good news to that. At least they're staying with the count, right? I mean, there is good news to that.
Them, maybe.
Can I also ask you, do you guys look at this somewhat as an entry-level position with opportunities to move up within the office, or not really?
In our office, we do have, so we hire at that $16.57, and then we have positions that are higher than that. But unfortunately, usually when we can get them to that position, those higher positions, we only have a certain number of them. We're more likely to keep them when we can get them to the higher positions, but the entry level, we're just, constantly churning at that entry level position. We've tried something new just in the last few weeks. We've put out part-time positions. We haven't had part-timers in a long time, but we have actually been able to hire. We've been getting more interest in, or more applicants from
More job
part-time.
share? Yeah.
Yeah, just thinking maybe we would attract a different crowd that we hadn't been reaching before. We've also worked with Workforce Network and used their internship program and hired someone out of there that we got as an intern through Workforce Network. So that was some success. And so we're going to kind of feel our way through this part-time thing and see if that works for us. But we are at least getting some applicants that we weren't getting before with the part-time position.
And I'm going to, last question, and I'm going to guess that that's going to probably be the biggest issue that we deal with the contract, with the negotiations, is salaries, starting salary?
Yes, no question. Yeah, no question. It's not going to be a cheap contract, I don't think, because, I do think that we probably have a few positions. We've steadily, and actually I think that's the next slide, we've steadily decreased our FTEs over the years, so we've come down 20 FTEs in the last 12 years. I think we probably have a couple more we can give. Generally, because we've been so far, down, we've had to figure out other ways to operate because we've been so short-staffed. So I do think we didn't put them in this year's budget because we're so in flux. But I do think probably next year, if we could level off on our hiring, we probably could you know, drop a couple more positions to help pay for what is, you know, not really a cheap contract.
And I lied, last question. What's the average, when we negotiate, what's the average year or length of contract? Are we doing two?
Three.
Three?
With the
Okay,
average.
okay.
Our current
Sometimes
one is
four.
four,
Yeah.
which was a long time. I
Right,
don't think this one will probably end up
Yeah,
being
knowing that,
four.
that's why I asked the question.
Yeah,
Okay.
I feel like this one's gonna probably end up being shorter, but the one we're in right now is four, which is long. It's a long time.
We're looking at, yeah,
Kelly?
in some instances, just doing one-year extensions right
Oh,
now,
wow.
Yeah.
just to see what's happening with the economy, but, we know we're gonna have to pay the circuit clerks more. We paid quite a bit more 4 years ago when we did this contract. It
True,
was
we
a
did,
pretty
yeah,
aggressive moving
true.
up, and then we
At the
opened it up.
time, it seemed great.
Yeah.
So these are entry-level positions that are, you're having a hard time filling. What are the requirements? Do you have to have a college degree?
No, one of the biggest ones that we can't find anyone who can type. I mean, we had what we thought was a simple, we required 35 words a minute typing, and so HR does that testing for us. It used to be you know, it was great, you know, it wasn't a big deal. We would send people to test, but boy, nowadays we are
Text.
You've even
struggling.
reduced it to 30 words. a
That's true,
minute.
yeah.
It's the past.
It's right, even if you can, yeah, so that has not been easy. So even when we can find applicants, we can't find applicants who, you know, because that unfortunately is a key part to be able to do the job, because we do so much data entry that you need to be able to do at least basic keyboarding. We don't expect it to be super speedy, but
Bob?
I have a question, Kate. Is, when you offer part-time, does that include benefit packages?
no, so we're doing 20 to 25 hours a week, so it's everything except for insurance. So you get a prorated vacation, prorated sick, holidays if you're scheduled to work the day, but no insurance.
Have you considered that? as
I
an
think the
option?
county policy is 30 hours a week.
That's a federal policy.
Okay,
Right.
I thought there was, and we're, you know, really looking for that 20 to, so what worked out the best for us, we've got them working 5 mornings a week, because our morning court calls are busier, so we've got this person we hired Monday through Friday, 5 hours a day, so 8 to 1. It's kind of an experiment. But so we have reduced our FTEs over the years, those 20 positions, basically over 20 positions, saving about 1.2 million last year, over 6 million total. So we're basically, we're divided by our first and third floor offices, and we also have a small accounting staff and an IT staff. So the budgets you see before you, we budget for the general fund, which generally just covers mainly our personnel and revenue items. Then we also budget for 5 statutory funds. They're generated from court fees, controlled either by the circuit clerk and or the chief judge, require county board approval. So the 5 funds are the court automation fund, the court document storage fund, our operation and administration fund, the support and maintenance fund, and then the electronic citation funds, which generally funds our electronic citation program. So we've got about 7,000 in general fund reductions that we've proposed for this current budget. So we're the last 65 years, I guess, we've had about a little over 42,000 in general fund reductions. A lot of this has come from our electronic filing expansion, you know, less need for printed forms, our old office, the folders that we used to put the cases in, generally that type of thing. So been able to reduce our general fund expenses over the last few years. So that was the good, but then here's the not so good. You've been hearing about the Safety Act then. I think Pete and Kevin talked to you about the Safety Act, and I think probably any of the other departments who presented their budget so far have probably also talked about it a little bit. There's a lot of unknowns with the Safety Act, but here's a few of the things that we do know coming from our department. So on average, we currently take in about $3.5 million of cash bond every year, and that'll be going away January 1st. Of that $3.5 million that we normally got sitting in cash bond, we apply an average about $2.5 million of that to fines and fees. So obviously that's not all county fee revenue. Some of that's state revenue, some municipalities, restitution, you know, some can be So it's maybe not all going to the county, but a decent chunk of that 2.5 million that we apply annually is county revenue. Another complete elimination would be the 10% fee, so that's a statutory fee that on that bond money, if they didn't post the full bond, when their case is ultimately disposed, then we take a 10% fee for that, and that'll be a reduction of roughly $225,000 annually. Used to range anywhere up into the 300,000s, but that's kind of generally been trending down over the last few years, but even this last year was over 200,000. So we're looking at kind of an unknown reduction in fines and fees, all the fines and fees accounts that are related to criminal offenses. Without the bond posted, we don't know how much, excuse me, how much of a reduction we're gonna see. We know we will see a reduction, but I guess it's just kind of an unknown as to what kind of reduction that's gonna be. Another unknown, personnel impact. At this point, the court has not decided whether we're going to need to expand to Sunday bond court. That's, I think, something that hasn't been decided, but that would be a personnel cost.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that still, even with all of those reductions, are you still going to be able to effectively manage and operate your cash flow as you go forward, or are we going to find ourselves in a situation where you may run short of funds for a period of time?
Well, I think, I think you're just gonna see the reduction in all the different fine and fee revenue that's generated from, kind of across the board. I think all the fines and fees are gonna see some reduction because whatever was coming from bond money is gonna be slowly dry up. We don't really know for sure what we're going to do. That's kind of a question nobody seems to be able to answer. Is the bond money January 1st that we're holding, which is over $3 million,
Right.
Is there going to be some sort of a push to say, okay, you got to give it all back? Is we really aren't. Nobody seems to be able to answer that question yet. Or will we just over time, as those cases dispose, will we pay it out like we normally have? When they come to some sort of a disposition. So that's our goal, is that we just, sit on it and gradually pay it down as all those cases come to some sort of resolution, whether we refund it to them at that point if they're found not guilty, or their case is dismissed, or if they're found guilty, then we apply it to their fines and fees. So that's our goal, unless we're told differently. At this point, there's not a lot of direction on what's going to happen with the bond money that's sitting.
Thank you.
So those are the biggest variables that we have, in our budget. So our numbers are always kind of a crapshoot, putting together our revenue numbers, but typically we can see there's definitely a trend, and we can usually make a educated guess based on the trend, but boy, there's just so many unknowns as far as the bail money, what's going to happen to that. Yeah.
Is there a way that when you have nothing else to do, on one of those Saturdays or Sundays that, that we could get a list of all of those outside entities that receive monies from the fines through McHenry County, just so we have an idea of how that's going to affect the community as we go forward? Because I'm going to guess all of us are going to hear from people.
It would generally be every municipality.
Okay.
So it would be all your municipalities. Not so much your townships, because the township fine money comes from traffic. So the township, their fine money is all on traffic cases, which would be less affected by the Safety Act. It's more the criminal stuff.
But
So
there's
it
no
would be
not-for-profits that receive any of those funds?
Crime Stoppers. A little bit of AIM, okay, the Alliance Against,
I would just
Okay,
appreciate
yeah.
it, just so that we're all aware of where we're going to
Okay.
hear, if we hear anything.
Those are probably the two as big. We used to do DARE a little bit. We don't see much DARE contributions.
Yeah, there's not too much
anymore.
going on.
Yeah, mainly, I guess, AIM, Crime Stoppers, a little bit of MAD, a little bit of Turning Point sometimes.
That's what I'm more worried about than anything, but if we could get that,
Okay,
I would
yeah.
appreciate it.
And
Yeah.
then literally all the municipalities with fine money would be part of
Yeah.
that. that. Yeah, we could get you a list. of
Thank
that.
you. Again, more not-for-profit than I get the municipalities.
Okay.
Thank you.
And so then another variable, the continuing changing statute, so this public hearing that I have to get to for the statutory court fee task force, one of their recommendations, and this is something that legislation's also already been pushed, and it's kind of something that's been happening across the country, is the reduction of all fines and fees on juvenile cases. So on juvenile delinquent cases, there's a few different groups have been pushing this across the country. One of the recommendations of the court fee task force is going to be, I believe, to eliminate fines and fees, and these will be on our juvenile delinquent cases. We don't take in a ton of money on those, you know, it's roughly anywhere from $100,000 to $150,000 annually, but as everything keeps getting chipped away at, that's just another, you know, potential reduction. One other recommendation that's coming out of that task force, I believe in some format, they're talking about some sort of a kind of a credit for time served based on how long you're sentenced to the Department of Corrections. So that, and kind of a movement that when they come out of the Department of Corrections, they wouldn't have big balances of fines and fees. I feel like with the elimination of cash bail, we're literally not going to be getting anything from people sentenced to the Department of Corrections anyway, once the cash bail is gone. So I don't think there'll be a lot of impact on that, because typically right now, the only thing we would get from someone sentenced to the Department of Corrections would be the application of their cash bail. And once cash bail is eliminated, that'll be kind of a negligible amount, I think. So I do feel like there's a lot of things afloat, you know, legislatively that could be, they're definitely not going to be adding to our revenue streams. It's definitely the slow elimination, I think, of any kind of revenue that we're getting from fines and fees. Some of the public comment that we received written for this public hearing they're holding this morning, a lot of it groups pushing towards the complete elimination of fines and fees, you know, whether the court system would be completely funded by, whether it's the state, the counties. There's a lot of, you know, a lot of thought out there that they feel like that's the direction that we should go. So there was a lot of public comment that fines, fees should completely be eliminated, both the civil and the criminal side. So I guess that's just another unknown, and I think looking forward to the future, I think we're going to be seeing nothing but more reductions in the types of fines and fees that we're able to collect.
Yeah.
Let me suggest, and all my suggestions are throwaways if you would like to do that with them. As you talk with other courts, and as you're part of this task force, whatever they decide to do at the state level, or whatever solution is, you know, we're going to get rid of all the fines and fees, whatever it is, give yourself a door if they'll allow you that. I mean, everybody feels very strongly about that now because of the economy and about what's happening, but you know, that changes, as we found out in a 4-year contract. Right. If you can get them to somehow incorporate a door for you to reinstate or to reevaluate, or to, rather than it's done and now you got to go back and do another statute or something, throw that out there and see if they don't, if they can't consider that for everybody.
Okay, interesting thought. Yeah, not a bad idea. And then, like I said, I guess that our other last big variable is our contract, and the fact that we really just need to be able to attract and retain staff, and that we all know that contract's not going to be, you know, not going to be cheap to make that happen. So does anybody have any other questions? All right, then I guess we're
Thank you
we're set.
very much.
Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to ask the coroner to present their budget, and then we can go right into the resolutions, which I believe the first two are for the coroner's office.
Okay, I still don't have any fancy pictures in here. So one of the things for you. Yeah, I know. So kind of going into I'm just going to go into the highlights right away. Okay. So the highlights that we started with the coroner's office this year, We had many, actually, there's probably some on here that we didn't even include, so, but it's been a busy year for us. We started our accreditation process. That actually started a little bit later than we wanted to, and part of that was because of the consultant was actually tied to part of the DOJ grant that we got for $113,000. But we are full steam ahead. We are working very diligently on that, and we're hoping to be accredited by the end of this year, hopefully. The other thing is that the International Association of Coroners and Medical Examiners, they are the ones that do the accreditation. I actually went out to Vegas for their symposium out there. It was actually really good. Sometimes you go to conferences and symposiums and it's like, whatever. But this one was actually really good symposium. There was a lot of people from all over the country that I got to network with, and actually met some people from Cook County as well through the medical examiner's office. Actually, one of the people at the medical examiner's office in Cook County, I will be meeting with him, and we're going to be discussing some things that might possibly be of interest for the state of Illinois. So, the other thing is that going down to the Gift of Hope, we started a program with Gift of Hope. They do the tissue and organ donations. And we started this last October is when we first started this program. And our coroner's office, we basically have worked with them very diligently on how we can preserve tissues and organ donations. Most people don't realize that it's very rare that you are able to get tissue and organ donations. It's not an easy process of how you just can't say, oh, I just want to take somebody's organs, things of that nature. There's a very strict policy on how this can be done. Typically, we have gotten about 20 to 25% tissue donations and organ donations through Gift of Hope. The average is about 14% through them. So, and I think we've actually increased that just a little bit recently even. So with that amount, you can save, I shouldn't say save, but you can use different tissues and organs typically in about 70 different people. So there is a big, when you give one person that you can identify as an organ or tissue donation, it is a very big deal. So, obviously awarding the DOJ grant that we got, which was, we've already implemented a lot of things with that, is helping the coroner office so far. Another thing is that I was very diligent on trying to find a new computer software program. And the company that we were going to go through, their program did not meet the standards for our IT to be able to house it. So what ended up happening is that I ended up going and looking at other vendors, different other avenues, and actually having a conversation with the coroner in Kane County, Rob Russell. They actually designed their own because they do have programmers there, because they're a big enough county to have programmers. So he let me have it for free. So we are in the process right now of with IT working on it. We already have the program. We're looking at implementing a few different changes to it, and hopefully we'll have that up and going January 1st. So.
I just have a quick question with regard to that. Is there some kind of a contract or a licensing agreement or anything like
Nope.
that?
No, they took care of it all.
Now, the question I would have
we
then.
went through the state's attorney's office as well,
Okay,
and we went through IT, IT, talked to them, state's attorney talked to them, everything was
Okay.
fine.
Good.
So,
Kelly?
So just curious, if there needs to be an upgrade or if they have changes, will they come do that for free?
no, they will not. That's one of the things is that if I wanted some type of major upgrade, IT can handle some small things and stuff like that because their people are not, first off, they're not paid to do computer programming. So if I wanted to do some type of major type of upgrade or things in that nature, we would do an intergovernmental agreement with them and do it that way.
So if they upgrade their system,
Mhm.
would they automatically send the upgrades to us then?
I don't know about that. I know that I talked to Rob, actually just recently, because I'm actually going to Collinsville after this for training with the Coroners and talking about a bunch of other stuff. But, so he was talking about doing some things as well because some of the stuff that I'm implementing, he's like, hey, that's a great idea. You know, that type of thing. You know, I'm a very statistical person and some of that stuff they don't have within the computer program, but we're adding it to ours. So he's actually, since they've designed it, he said, yeah, I want to go over and kind of, you know, see. So we've been in that collaboration as far as that. But I would assume more than likely if they did some type of major upgrade and some of the stuff fit to where I needed it, that they would probably just give it to us. We just did a Ride for Recovery, that I saw was what, right, this weekend. We're also doing the inaugural suicide prevention walk, which is next month, and being involved with that. So being involved with the drug coalition and things in that nature, this is just kind of an outreach to all of that stuff. Actually, they just got back from St. Louis. They did the basic medical legal death investigation course down there, which is a national conference that is done. Actually, St. Louis University was the first university to actually do a medical legal death investigation training course nationally. There was none out there for a long, long time, but they were the first ones. So it is one of those, it just so happens it's close to us, which is really nice. So, Northwestern. When I first came on board, some of the issues that we were having with Northwestern specifically was getting medical records from them. Sometimes it would take, believe it or not, over a month to get medical records from them, snail mail. And they would send a stack of somebody's chart and things of that nature. And so one of the things that I did is I met with the Northwestern president. We went through different scenarios and different things. And because we don't need everybody's whole file, you know, we just need certain things specifically, typically. So we ended up doing a streamline in where we can email them, get what we want, get it emailed back to us within 24 to 48 hours now. And this helps us with as far as like getting the death certificate signed and things of that nature, because if we're holding up death certificates, that holds up, because sometimes the legality part of things, especially when you get into who's paying for funerals, things of that nature, this helps speed that process along real quick. The other thing with Northwestern that I found is that Northwestern doctors were not signing death certificates. The coroner does not sign every death certificate. We sign the death certificates that we take over. So most of the death certificates are signed by physicians that are basically seeing that person for whatever reason that may or may not be. We were having issues with doctors not signing, things of that nature. That has been pretty much eradicated. So, which has been great, not only for us, but for funeral homes, because the funeral homes are the ones that really deal with that situation. even though they call us all the time, ask us for help sometimes because of some physician may or may not sign the death certificate. But that actually has cut down greatly, which is really good because it can be a lot of phone calls and a lot of time. We worked recently with the U.S. Product Consumer Safety Commission. I met with the person that is within our area that's hired from Washington, D.C. And as far as a lot of people don't realize that some consumer products may or may not have an effect on the cause of death. So we went through a little bit of training with that, and our deputies that go out on scenes now, a little bit more aware of things, especially like fires, or people that asphyxiation, things of that nature. Those are probably two of the major ones. But even somebody that may have fallen in a pool and passed away, things of that nature. There's what may seem innocuous may not be that way. So we've continued to work with the Northwestern University, the Illinois Violent Death Reporting System, and the statewide unintentional drug overdose reporting system. We actually get a stipend from them every year, which is good for the Coroners Fund and helps us with a few other things. It's not a lot, but it's probably 10% of what we take in for as far as money goes from death certificates, or not death certificates, but death cremation permits. Obviously, we're continuing to upgrade a lot of things, and going forward with policies, procedures. When we get the accreditation done, that'll implement probably close to about 175 different policies and protocols, whether they're new or updated within our office and stuff. We have a lot of goals for next year to go. So we ended up doing a few different things that we're working on, obviously, with the digitation of the records, remodeling of the morgue, the accreditation, things of that nature. One of the programs that we're looking for that seems to be lacking a little bit is people that have pets. A lot of the older population that live by themselves have pets. And when we get there, we're not really sure where that pet should or shouldn't go. And we're looking to hopefully, we're going to be working with obviously animal control, the state's attorney, and things of that nature, but hopefully implement a program so when somebody can actually go online and register their pet with them, and who they may or may not want to, I should say, may want to have their friend, their family, so we can call them right then and there. So animal control doesn't necessarily have to come out. Sometimes the person could be their friend right across the hall in an apartment. We can just, as long as we have that implementation, I think it'll be a good idea with that, because if not, we have to call animal control. That's pretty much how it works. So we're working on with FEMA and things in that nature. We're actually hosting a day-long seminar with funeral homes, with the funeral directors and things in that nature. Gift of Hope is actually sponsoring that for free, so that's a good thing. And just continue to keep working, and upgrade as we go. So getting into the Coroner's budget, unless there's any other questions.
Kelly?
So, thank you, you've done a lot since you've started, so, a lot of the automation, that's great. Gift of Hope, is that related to when you sign with your driver's license that should
Yes.
be at work?
Yes. So if the person who goes to the hospital or something like that, the hospital actually marks that down, so they know right away.
And in looking at your budget, so general fund, there's an increase in personnel at 10.4%. Is that just normal raises?
So with our personnel, we just hired 3 new people in late January, early February. So they just actually got off of probation, so to speak. Now these people that came in, everybody that's hired either has a minimum of a associate's degree, a bachelor's degree, or a master's degree. So those equivalents have, compared to starting pay, those people, in my opinion, will warrant the bottom starting pay, so, and that type of thing. So they are up a little bit, compared to, but like I said, one of the good things is that everybody in my office actually has a degree. A lot of people, so last year, from up until then, we had a little bit of turnover, because people get involved in our business basically thinking it's CSI, and it's not. So, and it's not this glamorous position, and it's totally different than what they think it is, and so we've had a little bit of turnover at that point. At one point, it was just me, my chief deputy, and one other deputy coroner that was running the office. So it was a little hair on fire at the time. So, but everything, like I said, we hired 3 new people, and also because we do have these 3 new people with the raises that they get after probation, and then I think it's 2.25% for their union raises. Starts December 1st as well. Our contract doesn't end until next December 1st. So.
How many of your employees are union?
4 of the 5. Well, not including the honest. But the 5 people that are staffed, 4 of the 5. The chief deputy, Olivia, she's not. Okay.
And then, so then if we go down to the Fund 303, just looking at, there's increases and decreases here. The big one is that contractual services is going up 68%. So just wondering what that is.
Contractual services, some of the contractual services that under the 40s and stuff, that's where you can, gosh, I wish I had the line item, so to speak. But I moved some of the stuff from the general fund down into the 303 fund, because the 303 fund was, or the 100 fund, the general fund was being increased for not autopsies, but toxicology, transportation, things of that nature. But some of the stuff that was under there, I brought it down into the 303 fund to offset some of those costs, is what I was doing. So.
Which leads me to one more question.
Sure.
The autopsy transportation that you're asking for $20,000 on a supplemental request. So what do you do now? I assume you still move the bodies.
Yes. Yes, we do. So even with this contractual movement of money, the last year, if you recall, we came in front of the board for an emergency appropriation for $78,000. So this still is not a worst case scenario. This is actually just a good operating thing. Well, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry. So one of the conversations that we had last year with this committee was, there's got to be a way to right-size the coroner's budget. And so when we're talking about, that was in 2021, we already had an established budget, and then which we had duplicated copy for 2022, which was adopted, but then that resulted in an additional or an emergency resolution where we requested the 78,000 to cover a lot of the just day-to-day fees that the coroner's office incurs. So, and we promised, we sat here and said, fiscal year 2023, we're gonna come back to the board and ask for what is really the normal day-to-day operations, what does it take for the county to fund the coroner's office? And this is what that amount is. So that additional 52,000 that you see in supplemental, that is truly increasing the coroner's budget, I'll say forever and ever, because it's really truing all of those fees up to what the day-to-day looks like for the coroner's office. So that's why we're presenting it this way, so that we know that supplemental request, I just want to clarify that is an increase in the coroner's office budget fiscal year 2023 and forward, and that is our way of saying we realize that you inherited a budget that you have no say in. And so now that you've gone through a few cycles, what is it you're proposing, and that's what the proposal is coming to. So that's why you see that additional 52,000 in there. Unfortunately, right, the timing of these couldn't be any better or worse, because we're also dealing with everything else you saw, and based on our budget policy and everything else, this is going to be tied directly to the tax levy as well. So in order to get to that point, this is a must, obviously. Whether the county does it right now or in the middle of next fiscal year with an emergency appropriation, that will be up to the committees or the board to do so or to decide.
Well, with that in mind, so you have the fund balance enhancement also for projected for fiscal 23 at 26,000. So when I think of fund balance enhancement, is that just our reserves?
Yeah, and that's in the coroner's office. So there's Fund 303, right? So that's outside of the general fund, outside of the levy. And over the last few years, I know this was a point of conversation as well. There were some expenses that were paid out of the coroner's office that some, whether if you had been in that position, I don't know that you would have gone with that, but that's what it was done. It wasn't done illegally or in any kind of way. It was transparent. It was it was approved by the board and the committees as well. So that fund balance went down for a few years, and now what you're trying to do is build it back up. So that's where you see the 26,000.
So those were expenditures that should have come out of the general fund?
Could have.
Could have.
Yep.
Could have.
Yep.
And so this is just okay. Got it.
Yep.
The coroner, him or herself, has more discretion on the use of the coroner's fund. We're trying to find that right balance.
That balance.
Part of that is a resolution that's in front of you. So, go ahead.
I too want to commend you for all the work that you've done in the coroner's office. I think it's remarkable what you've been able to accomplish. It's truly appreciated, much more professional. And I think, Kev, that's exactly what the direction of this committee was at that particular time, is to truly reflect the costs of the coroner's office in the coroner's budget. So appreciate that. Question: do you anticipate, do you see moving forward any additional new requirements, new standards, anything that would impact the budget more than we've already seen thus far?
I don't, because part of the thing is that with the toxicology is that we're requiring toxicology on everybody nowadays, where the law itself is kind of changing a little bit anyways, but it's also, I made it a requirement. It wasn't required before. It hasn't been required with the state. There's certain cases that people, coroner's office may or may not have done for certain reason, even medical examiners done in Chicago and things of that nature. But we are already seeing laws that are being changed to require everybody. And the ones that we weren't necessarily doing, it didn't seem worth it to me to begin with. But it also shows our accreditation process, that we are what we do, as far as taking toxicology on every person that comes in that has an autopsy, whether it be a partial autopsy or a full autopsy.
So you've initiated that in your office, anticipating that ultimately at some particular point it's going to be required by everybody.
Right, and basically you're probably talking about what that looks like is maybe $5,000 or $6,000. It is basically the difference of not doing it on everybody compared to doing it on everybody in certain cases and things of that nature. So the difference, you know, to me.
It's minimal.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. But it's also, it's part of an investigation. And I think it's our job to investigate everything, not just partial things and things of that nature. I'm sure you guys, or some of you remember inquests, you know, and things of that nature, where inquests were done all the time for determining cause and manner of death. What that is basically kind of a jury trial.
I only ask honestly, Michael, because as we move forward and we're going to have to look at significant cost potential reductions, I want to know, and I understand you've brought the office up to a level of professionalism, as I stated, that's really good, and I appreciate that. But if we've got to make some tough decisions, I want to know.
I will say one thing.
Where we can.
I actually think one thing that may happen is, and it actually might help reduce the general fund in the future, is the cremation permits that right now under law, of the 101 counties that are under the law, coroner laws, it's $50 for a cremation permit. Cook County, which is home rule county, they increased their fees to $100 a handful of years ago. They just recently increased their cremation fees to $150. The Coroners Association is working to try and get our fees up to $100. So that actually may actually help in the long run offset some of the general fund.
Is that something obviously that this committee should consider putting on their legislative agenda to assist in that regard?
I don't think it would hurt, but I'm also hoping that with the way the talks are going, I'm hoping it passes in November. So, but yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Questions from the committee? Seeing none, I guess it's our consensus to move this forward.
I'm going to stay here.
Unless we have a presentation that was taken out of order, or we have a liquor license, excuse me.
No liquor license.
Okay, so,
Good.
moving right on, we have a motion to approve a resolution authorizing the coroner's case file conversion project.
I'll make a motion.
So John made the motion, Tom seconded it. The floor is yours, sir.
Okay, so as you can tell, this project started back in 2018, and it has kind of come to a head one way or another that we were going to digitize our files. Going through the files, actually from the original bid process, me and Melissa, who is head of the files down in facilities, we actually found another 43 boxes on top of what there originally were. So,
Was that due to the fact that it was going to be a 5-year phased-in project originally in 2018?
no. Because the files that are being digitized are before 2012. Everything after 2012 was already digitized, so to speak. We already have that on file, things of that nature. So it's basically pre-2012.
I just had thought that the initial pull on the files that were withdrawn or that were, physically moved was for the first year in a 5-year process, but
No, the process was going to be over a 5-year, obviously, process of things, and obviously, from the original bid to now, obviously some cost increase plus the extra boxes that we actually found and things of that nature. So we kind of adjusted it a little bit of what it needed to be. Obviously, talking with Pete and Kevin and using the ARPA funds for this would be a great implementation. And I'm all for it. But yeah, so it's been something that's been in the works obviously for quite a while, and we're looking to be able to do that pretty quickly. So one of the things that I put into the contract is that, because I believe that companies in Itasca, I can take the files down there. We don't have to spend extra money to have them come and get them and things of that nature. So when that bridge occurs, I'll go out to facilities, load up the truck, take them down there, and drop them off, and hopefully bring back others in one full swoop. So that way we don't have to incur the cost of the extra cost of them coming down. So.
Carol?
I just have a quick question. I mean,
Sure.
so it's a set fee. I mean, within the information, it was
Mhm.
kind of hard to know within any particular box just how complicated it was going to get. Is this good to go then, or
Yep.
with digging up the boxes?
Yes,
and
because
find out?
they've come out multiple times
Okay.
and re-looked at boxes. We pulled boxes so that they could, from older files to newer to, basically I was taking files every 5 to 7 years and just pulling them out and seeing what they look like, because pulling every box to go through everything is kind of very difficult. But we pulled those boxes, they went through them, they came back out again, we went through some other boxes and things of that nature that they wanted to kind of look again, because obviously they already had a record of coming out and looking at it before. So that it was just kind of a, double, triple, and quadruple check of everything of what there was or was not from the older files. Because you have posted notes in there, you have, handwritten stuff on, notes on paper, things that, there was nothing generalized, so to speak. It wasn't systemized, things of that nature, so. Plus all the old red binders that we have, those are in my office still, so, but those are, some of the stuff is kind of fun to go back and look at. But we also work with the Historical Society every year. They look at a case every year, and they kind of do almost like a reenactment of it, and things of that nature with the Historical Society. Last year we did one with them. There was a case back in the 50s where actually somebody got crushed in between 2 rail cars because of fog and carry. And back in the old days, they used to lay down these bombs, that's what they call them, on the train tracks when people were going slow, and they would go off to signify there was a train in front of them. So it was kind of an interesting case, and they kind of came and we pulled the file and copied it for them, and they kind of did a little, talked about it, reenactment of it, what happened, and things of that nature. So, that's pretty much all I got.
Good. Any questions from the,
None.
there being no questions, could we have a roll call, please?
Noack,
Yes.
Kovac,
Yes.
Campbell,
Yes.
Wagner,
Yes.
Altough,
Yes.
Young,
Yes.
Van Bergen,
Yes.
Thorson.
Yes. All right. And now we're 6.2B, a resolution authorizing the purchase of a new Dodge Durango for the County Coroner's Office and an emergency appropriation of the County Coroner's fiscal year 2022 budget. Can I have that motion? John makes that, John makes that motion. Tom Mobeck seconds.
Hold on 1 second, my chief deputy just texted. Okay. All right, we're looking to upgrade our fleet as far as, I have an old Tahoe that's pretty much getting to be on its last legs and stuff, so And there's such a short window of opportunity to actually order. I think the sheriff's office is ordering a bunch too, so. But obviously, we're looking to upgrade this vehicle, help us be a little bit better. You know, this will be actually better on fuel mileage as well, things of that nature. So, but this is actually coming out of the Coroners fund, so there's no impact to the general fund whatsoever. So that's all I have.
Questions? Pam?
I would just anticipate that this makes much more sense than investing in huge maintenance costs to keep up an older vehicle that
It
is not
can.
cost and fuel
It can,
efficient.
yes. So I'll probably be coming in front of you next year with another one because we have 3 vehicles, and once we get that in place, that'll help immensely. So
What year is the one you're currently replacing?
it's 11 years old, so 2012.
Thank you.
11, something like that.
Just noting
Ellie?
the age.
So will you keep the Tahoe? I'm just wondering
No.
about the process.
It'll be sold. It'll be sold on the open market and stuff. So
And then that money will go back into the Coroners.
it'll go back in the corners.
Any further questions? There being none, can we have a roll call, please?
Wagner,
Yes.
Altough,
Yes.
Campbell,
Yes.
Colbeck,
Yes.
Young,
Yes.
Von Bergen,
Yes.
Thorson.
Yes.
Nothing's mine.
And
Driving down the county.
speaking of vehicles, we have a resolution authorizing the purchase of 10 Dodge Charger pursuit vehicles and 1 Dodge Durango from Sunnyside Company of McHenry, Illinois bid per 22-5408 for the McHenry County Sheriff's Office. Hi Sandra, how are you?
Good morning, very well, thank you.
The
Do you need a
floor is
motion
yours.
first, or you want me to?
I'll move.
Oh, yeah.
Second.
Now the floor is yours.
Great. Well, good morning. So this is an annual resolution that the Sheriff's Office brings forward to purchase vehicles for the following year. This year, it's actually coming a little early. We were notified, or our fleet manager was notified by the manufacturers that there's a very small window to order. So September is it. So we're pushing these forward faster than we normally do for an FY23 purchase. The Sheriff's Office worked with the purchasing director on putting out a bid, and we received 1 response, which really these days isn't as surprising as it normally would be. In fact, last year, when I was before you, I told you a lot of the manufacturers weren't even selling to government at all. So I feel that we're lucky to have Sunnyside bid on us. This year we're asking for the 10 Chargers and the 1 Dodge Durango. And this will come out of the non-departmental fund that the county board approves for the fleet, which is budgeted at $500,000 every year. This number in the resolution is based on the base price. It is early, and we know what vehicles we're going to be replacing. We have a great idea on what those vehicles are going to be used for, but it can change. So part of the bid also includes additional stuff. So, for instance, the Durango, if it's used as a canine vehicle, there's going to be additional costs to it, which fall under another contract. As you know, you probably saw in my performance indicators, our fleet is 288 for the county. So this is replacing 11 this year. Ideally, for the Sheriff's Office for pursuit vehicles, we want to replace about 26 vehicles a year. We haven't reached that yet, but that would be replacing at 5 years or 120,000 miles at the max to keep a safe fleet out there on the road. So every year we get a little closer to getting into that replacement schedule for the Sheriff's Office. Yes.
Pam?
What, do you have an idea of delivery from ordering to actually delivery of those
We don't.
vehicles or no?
We don't,
Okay,
not yet.
not even a guesstimate, maybe? I mean, are we anticipating a long duration?
No.
Okay.
I believe they're going to, so I'm not speaking on behalf
You're
of the fleet
opining,
manager.
yeah.
Yes, because there's such a short window, they want to get the orders in and get them out. Our fleet manager just got back from a conference, and as you know, the hype right now is electronic vehicles, and I think they're looking forward to the next several years and how they're going to change some of these. We're told that next year the Chargers are going to look a lot different. So I think they want to get these done and out so that they can start on whatever the next model is going to look like.
That's
Kelly.
good.
So if we purchase them now,
Yes.
and are they here, I guess this is also a question for Kevin, and they come in for November 1st.
They're not going to come in before November 1st.
Okay, so we don't have to worry about budget. The other thing is, will we see a following resolution then to outfit them with all the special things?
It depends. The outfitting is done with UltraStrill, which we have an ongoing contract with. So I really highly doubt it because of how with purchasing and having the contract for them to upfit the cars goes. We had kind of separated that out, but I have no problem coming back to this committee once everything's upfitted and we're all good to go. We stay within that 500,000 every year that we're allocated. But now, you know, we're adding this for the next 5 years. It's gonna be pretty steady, but after that, when we add in our in-car camera costs and all of that, it's gonna go up a lot more. So the contracts will look different.
And I wasn't requiring you to if
Sure.
it's under 30,000, I just assumed it would be 30,000.
Yeah, with the way that purchasing, works, it's by commodity. So light bars, they're a lot, but the total is gonna be under 30,000 and whatnot, so.
Carolyn, did you have something?
No, it was answered. Thank you.
Pam, did you have something?
No.
Any further questions? There being none, could we have a roll call, please?
Noel,
Yes.
Von Bergen,
Yes.
Robeck,
Yes.
Young,
Yes.
Campbell,
Yes.
Alta,
Yes.
Wagner,
Oh.
Yes.
Thorson.
Yes. All right. 6.2D, we have before us a resolution authorizing the acceptance of the 2023 McHenry County Emergency Operations Plan. Could I get a motion, please? Carolyn, seconded by Kelly.
Good morning. By your place, there was this is within the plan, but these are the risk factors. We do what's called threat hazard identification and risk assessment, and this guides the plan. In past years, you would have seen flooding or severe weather right at the top. For some reason, the pandemic moved up. For some reason, and cyber is a huge issue. And it's a challenging issue, and unfortunately, we have the IT department we have here that we've been somewhat resilient to what's going on in the world around us. I have colleagues who, LaSalle County, lost access to all of their computer records for 5 weeks, 6 weeks, and what they recovered wasn't what they started with. And that's just one of, many of our colleagues have lost it. So anyways, it readjusts how we plan for the future and how we look if we're attacked and if it shuts us down or incapacitates us, how we react beyond that. So that's the basis for the plan. In order to maintain my accreditation, every 2 years I have to submit to the Illinois Emergency Management Agency a new plan, an updated plan. They may add new requirements and new tools before that we used prior to the plan. What we have here, we sent to every board member a link. In the past, if you remember, for those who've been around for a while, there were 5 copies kept over in administration, and you could review here. They're official use only. We've parsed out or taken out some of the data in there that we felt there's actually contact information in the plan. We removed that. It's a website that could be accessed, but you have the link for it to go direct to review the plan. As I understand it, and as we've done it every time that I've submitted a plan to you for your approval, and I need your approval, the board approval, and Chairman Bueller's signature on it before I can submit it to IEMA for their approval. It then goes on 30-day review, so you have from your board meeting to your next board meeting, you'll have 30 days to take a look at it. and please give me a call if you have any questions about that plan. As it sits, it meets all the requirements that IEMA has forwarded to us. 2 years ago, I brought a plan to you, we approved it, it met every requirement of IEMA at the time that we submitted it to you, and they added one afterwards. I don't know if you remember, there was an annex that I had to get authorized instead of sending the whole plan through, we sent that through. EMA does it so that this board, this seated board, approves the plan because you're familiar with it, you've been here for 2 years. It's really not due until March, which would mean I could submit it in January and have it through in time, but it'd be a brand new board. And it may be all the same faces, right? But I just don't think it's fair. So I submitted early enough that the board that's been seated has been around, has an idea. They're the ones taking a look at the plan. There's a risk there that I even say, hey, by the way, add this, but we'll deal with it when we come through. So that's just asking for your approval, and so we can put on 30-day review.
Thank you. Any questions from the committee, Pam?
More of a comment, just again, David, the coordination over the years that you've done with all the other local municipalities on ensuring that the entire county is on the same page and responding, just, kudos to you guys.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the committee? There being none, could we have a roll call, please?
Campbell.
Yes.
Wilbeck.
Yes.
Noack.
Yes.
Wagner.
Yes.
Von Bergen.
Yes.
Altough.
Yes.
Young.
Yes.
Thorson.
Yes. All right, before us is 6.2a, a resolution authorizing the acceptance of the revised Illinois Emergency Management Agency State Local Hazard Mitigation Grant Agreement for planning and an emergency appropriation in the agency's fiscal year 2022 budget and acceptance of the contractor. We have a motion, Carolyn, a second by Kelly.
So you already approved this once, and then I went to go get a vendor to help me put the hazard mitigation plan. And let me give some background on hazard mitigation plan. Every 5 years we need to update this. Without this plan, no community, no entity in McHenry County can submit for hazard mitigation dollars. This is anything from the buyouts, from the building snow fences, any type of mitigation effort that you would look for federal funds for, you have to have a hazard mitigation plan. We applied for it. We, in our heads, thought there'd be a modest increase in what a vendor would charge to do it. And then our first round, we sent to, I think, 12 vendors or 15 vendors, and we had no response. So we begged, borrowed, and stealed from across the nation to try to get a response, and we finally got one. And they came in an incredible rate. We originally thought that the last plan cost us $52,000 for a vendor to revise what we had. This one, the vendor originally came in at something like $99,000 for the plan. So I negotiated with the vendor, and we felt we would do more things. I'm working with UIC. They have a graduate level program where they have graduate level students work with you. So they'll do part of the work that's taken in putting the plan together. I'm still waiting for 2 students to bite on it to say, yeah, we'll do it. That's always a challenge, but hopefully that will go down. So that brought our costs down. And then the next thing was, I did something that I didn't think you could do before. I told the state and I asked FEMA for more money, and they came through with it. And that's why I'm asking you to approve this resolution. Because they gave me, I think, $22,000 more with the things we did with the vendors, with working with UIC to have basically interns help us out. I think we can do it. You'll look on there, and we have a share. We have a 25% share on doing the hazard mitigation plan. But we can use most of that in-kind donations. We can't use EMA staff in-kind donations, the hours we spent on it, and we're spending the lion's share because we already have a federal grant applied to ourselves. What we did is, on that federal grant, we pulled Robin off of it, so only our administrative assistant, only her hours we can use for our in-kind donations. And every community that participates, we look to them to track their hours, and we can use that for in-kind. You know, in the future, we may want to look stronger to those communities that have benefited so much. They have no dollars in the game, right? We, the county, are at risk for that whole thing. I think we can do it all in-kind donations, but we were fortunate to only have one vendor, and then willing to work with us. So I need to accept the revised, what FEMA and IEMA have said, okay, we'll give you a little more money.
Questions, comments? There being none, we will roll call, please.
Von Bergen.
Yes.
Nowak.
Yes.
Wilbeck.
Yes.
Young.
Yes.
Althoff.
Yes.
Campbell.
Yes.
Wagner.
Yes.
Sorson.
Yes. I would like to take or suggest that we move your budget to the next item so that we can finish up with you, and then I'd like to call a break. Do we have any objections to doing that?
No.
Okay, thank you very much.
You ready to do that? Thank you. These are the 5 phases of emergency management, and it's just a reminder of the big general categories that we work on. What I did this time is I tried to break it down to give you an idea of how that breaks out and what fits into each of those areas. You know, the lights and siren part of EMA is very small compared to all the other areas that we're involved in. My colleague in Lake County is working through Highland Park right now, and he was a reminder. He said the day of the shooting was his light day. Everything he's done since then has been huge, and that's community recovery, his county working with every alphabet of federal agencies that you can imagine and what have you. And it's the same here, and you can see that preparedness and prevention, they have huge ones. And although there's a lot of things under response, I kind of loaded it because I put some of our equipment there, but those are the things that EMA is working on. A lot of planning, a lot of networking with our colleagues. It really, in the last year or two, we've really had to lean on each other, and mainly the Metro County coordinators. And when you bump into county board members from the other counties around, and thank them for the time of their coordinators, because we all help each other, you know. And when weather's approaching from the west, I usually am on the phone with Dan from Lake County to say, well, it hit us, here's what happened, and vice versa. Kane County, we always have a joke about I'm sending the water to him, but that's what emergency management is working together. We assisted Will County. They had a major exercise. It was actually a multi-million-dollar exercise. We went down there to assist them with their emergency operations center, and they will reciprocate in the future. So a lot of areas of emergency management, and it's more than just the plan I presented or the hazard mitigation plan. There's many other things that we're involved in. So I think this is one of the forms of the budget, and we're pretty much static on that. It's the same setup. Everything for the red boxes on down, and that's all volunteers that are part of what makes us tick, and a strong part of our program. We have a certified search and rescue group or division, and we have developed, and it's actually become a model in the state, we developed an EOC support group. So they actually help in the Emergency Operations Center. Nobody who has to work in that center when we're doing things should have to worry about marking up on the board. Evolve into a meeting where, okay, who's gonna be the scribe on the board. Our volunteers do that. They find the pencils, they make the coffee, they let you know where the plans are and what have you. So anyways, strong part of what makes us tick. So those are the 2 specialty teams that we have, a communications unit, and that's becoming more critical. You saw the risk factors, I said cyber. Our entire radio network here in the county whether it's police, whether it's fire, whether it's our DOT or EMA, is all a digitized radio system that's computer controlled. You add those things together and it could be a bad day. We've been very fortunate. There's a lot of controls in place to make that work, but that communications unit works all the time to make sure that if it fails or if it's somewhat down, that we can hopefully make up for it. Some images of some of the equipment that we have, our command trailers, our UTE. We even have an amazing tent. There's more to it than meets the eye there, but works some long cold nights in that tent to either manage an incident or be involved in some of the hazmat issues. And here's what I really wanted to show you. Each year in our budgets, we submit our performance indicators. I divided into two because the scaling would have been really weird, and these are 4 of them, and that's the number of volunteers. And if you notice, the COVID years have kind of taken us down a little bit. We were on an increasing basis, the number of volunteers. With COVID, we actually were responding less, that volunteers volunteered to do something, so that fell off a little bit. The chart ends in last year. Then the EMA staff training that we were able to pick up on, and that's anything from conferences to actual training sessions. There's some new requirements and what have you. And then our volunteer training sessions, although it looks like it tapered off, we did something. We automated it. We put it in PowerPoint. We narrated them. We set up an intro to EMA where over a 6-month period, our emergency management volunteers are guided through different facets of emergency management and the other things we do. Usually they're involved in search. You know, it's a narrow blinder on search, but what we did was we want everybody to know a little bit about everything we do. And then event coordination. This is the other performance indicators, and the skewed part of the scaling is the black, and that's the darker line. That's actual event coordination. As you can imagine, in COVID, there's a lot of them. I think the one year it was we in the operations center met 2 or 3 times every week during COVID, so that skewed that line up. But the general trend you'll notice on our performance indicators that we're trending up, and sometimes it's hard to see in the numbers. 2021, there was a drop a little bit because just people weren't meeting together, they weren't going together. On here is mutual aid response and other things that would require people to be facing each other, and during COVID we weren't able to do that. So I showed you these because I wanted to show you this. That blue, maybe purple line going across is what I've asked you for every year in a budget. This only goes back to 2015. If I take the line back to the first year I asked you for money in 2011, there's a $1,500 difference between that year and this year what I've asked you for. The red line is my actual, or the red bars are my actual expenses, offset by the green, which is the grant revenues that we applied for grants. The one year where it looks like I spent more than I got, it's because of the way the carryover happens on grants and spending. So if you look at the year before and the year after, it actually balances off that year. So what we try to do every year is to counter the expenses. There's the top line, to be transparent, that's salaries, right? I don't have salaries in the bottom data there, but it has of course increased, and then this year it'll be, you know, a bigger bump due to the work you did to try to help compensate for market forces, what have you. But I wanted to give you an idea of EMA, and I know that my fellow departments have all been trying to be fiscally responsible, and we try to keep our line flat of what we're spending, and anything additional, we found money somewhere else to try to pay for it. So I hope that helps give you a picture of, not looking at numbers, maybe looking at a picture of what we tried to do. This is what makes it work. There's many more partners that we deal with or work with, but this is, on an ongoing basis, all the people that we're in touch with to try to make EMA work here in McHenry County. really excited by some of the relationships. The Illinois Terrorism Task Force has been a huge one. It's been a big source of funding here for us, because that's where the Homeland Security dollars come through, and then we eventually can benefit from that. So hopefully that gave you a little better idea of where we're at. Going through the forms, our highlights. We maintain our accreditation each year. There's certain things that we have to do, sometimes in my office called hurdles, but for the most part, it deals with training, and it deals with time on incident, and a big part of that is exercises. And as you see by point 2, the number of exercises that we were involved in, and this is where we're actually practicing our talent. Everything from the National Weather Service tabletops, which have really come along and really amazing, to EOC activation. During the school summit of this year, really excited. We put out the invitation. We had 60. We put it out to the superintendent's office of all the schools, and we had 60 responses that said they would be there. 31 made it. Almost every district was represented there. And Carolyn, thanks for being there. What we did is we gave them 10 possible scenarios that would affect the school. And we asked them, which one do you want to walk through? And we did a walkthrough, a very high level walkthrough. And the one they chose, and we thought this might happen. I was hoping for some others that might be looked at. It could be anything from a fire, a tornado, or severe weather, lost child, disruptive child. So you know which one they chose, and it ended up being an armed intruder. We thought we would walk through 3, and we ended up getting in depth on this one and just did armed intruder. And we didn't ask anything about where do you hide. We didn't ask anything about who do you call. What we asked is, do you have a plan for this? Do the people in the plan know they're in the plan? I see this everywhere I've traveled, on the disaster side. I've seen plans that have people's names in it or entities' names in it that don't know that they're in the plan. So that was one of our questions. Nobody answered the question out loud to me, but if you read body language, you could tell that some people are going to update their plans or they're going to make phone calls. We did an exercise. We did a series of exercises with Northwestern Medicine, and they're on this list. And one of the things they had was they had designated where they were going to go as their emergency operations center. There was an armed intruder at that particular Northwestern facility. I asked that question as part of the exercise. Well, no, they hadn't actually talked to them in many years, and it wasn't a good location. SWAT team was having a mini grabber just thinking about it, because that location is a wall of glass looking at where they plan on doing it, but that's why we do exercises, right? But back to the school summit, for those that were there, it was great. It was great to be able to talk and what have you. And what's interesting when you do something like that is McHenry County crowds have always been relatively quiet. So I gauge it on the phone calls and emails I get afterwards, which was way up, right? And the conversations that are occurring right there. 2 of my colleagues, DuPage County, their coordinator, and Lake County came over for it. And Lake County asked for a presentation, because we also did, the Sheriff's Office gave a presentation on armed intruder. And it was, I trying to throw a curveball at him, and I said, if you needed to do 3 to 5 things to mitigate an armed intruder, what would you do? He turned it around and asked them what 3 to 5 things that they think, and then he qualified it, and it was really a good discussion. So anyway, really excited about that school summit. It's back in the water. It's working again.
David, real quickly, you said those that attended. Yeah. What's the follow-up for those who did not attend?
So there's no obligation that they be there. I think the follow-up is that the superintendents that were there, we'll talk to superintendents that maybe didn't get there or the staff didn't get there, and say, we got something out of it, maybe go next year. Because I've been holding it every year. I've had speakers from the Terrorism Task Force. I had a consultant from out of North Carolina for them. We've done a number of things. Western Illinois presented at one of the summits, so I'm just hoping that it'll happen. I've never had half of the people that say they're going to be there not show up before, so I'm not sure what happened that day. Carol?
I would say maybe we could be helping with that. Talking to people when we're talking to other government officials, is how important this is that we get participation from the different agencies. Because I think, you know, because Deputy Crichton was the one who did, it was not just a few things, he had a long list, and he walked us through quite a few things, so it was very valuable. So maybe us talking to people too can help.
It would, again, what I was going for, it would be interesting to know who did not attend and how we can reach out exactly to that point. And I'm not doubting your efforts at all. I'm just exactly concerned about the fact that perhaps in a list of priorities, people don't understand how that should be at the top of the list rather than in the middle someplace.
It's a challenging time, and you all have arranged meetings, and where on the calendar are you going to throw the dart?
I understood,
Yeah.
understood.
So I get it, but to say you're going to be there, I would never publish that list of who didn't make it, but I know, you know, I have an idea. What I'm very excited about is the reception that it received and what we were able to accomplish. Oh, I forgot, we started off by reviewing state law applied to schools where emergency management's involved, in the School Safety Act. Safety Drill Act is one of those. This may surprise you, but every once in a while Springfield changes the law, and they did change the law.
Yeah.
But where it comes to armed intruders, or armed intruder exercise.
So perhaps what I would suggest, and I apologize, finishing what I started, is rather than making the assumption or even putting that burden on us, there is a superintendent, McHenry County Superintendent's Association. Perhaps you can contact the president and just again indicate that sharing and the evaluation of that program and the value to all those school districts, maybe that would be a way to ensure you get greater participation as well, without without violating confidentiality as to who attended
Sure.
and who didn't.
He
Thank
was
you.
there.
And
Thank
on
you.
that note, I would maybe share it with the ROE, because, and maybe you did, but I think that would be a great way to get it out to everybody. Couple things, so thank you for that, because my kids go to District 155, and we received an email saying that our superintendent attended. And I can't tell you how much relief I felt when I know that they're attending these. So maybe even, I don't know, publicize a little bit more so public can put pressure on the schools to go too. And the other thing I'd say is, would you mind sending us the presentation?
No, not at all.
That would be great, I'd love to see it.
All right.
Me too, I agree.
Just for this committee or the whole board, how do you want that?
Committee.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll route it to Kathy and she can get out to all of you, and then that'll be great.
Thank
I
you.
believe I did email that out to the board a few weeks ago, but we'll send it out.
Yeah, it's a few weeks ago, I don't think we had access, do you know?
Thank you, yeah, this is something that having kids in school, it just terrifies me.
Are private schools?
Terrifies the kids.
Yes, it
Tracy.
does.
I'm sorry.
Are private schools
Those that we're aware of,
invited?
we try to reach out. We have a tough time. I can't, public schools, their staff changes quickly, right? Private schools, it must be a revolving door. So once we learn the person, it flips. So we send it and then we get the email back, but we don't, you know, it just says they're no longer here or what have you. We need to do a better job of finding out who they are before then, but no, we did not reach out as strongly as we could have to the private schools.
More questions? You're not complete yet, though, we're only halfway through highlights, right?
Yeah, sorry.
We gotta-
There's a lot of things we do that are exciting to EMA, but that was the big one, so I'll end my highlighting there.
All right.
Our goals for next year are to maintain this exercise schedule. And we really need to exercise the Emergency Operations Center, that staff there that shows up, and it's mainly department heads and a few others. There's a new requirement by FEMA in order for us to get one of the grants that we get, National Qualification Standard. So we'll be working with those people that attend the Operations Center and making sure that they meet that requirement. The other big focus we've tried for several years in continuity of operations is to make sure that that COVID taught us a lot about continuity of operations and being able to work if we can't get in here, or if we can't get into one computer, how do we get into another computer? So, and the last one I'll bring up is the new Emergency Operations Center over at carry in partnership with the Sheriff's Office, and thank you to them for the footprint they've given us now. We just need to make sure that it's a viable footprint for us. My full-time equivalents are staying steady as they have, and with the exception of hopefully 2 interns from UIC that are unpaid and that will help us get our job done. And the dollars, I showed you graphically where we're at. It's roughly the same as last year. And the performance indicator, I graphed those for you. So that's what I got for you.
Just
Kelly?
a quick question.
Sure.
So personnel is increased by 9%. Does that include FICA? Is that why it's so high?
I have to defer to Kevin.
Is that on most of them, that it's including FICA?
Yeah, and it does include all the salaries and benefits, and plus it does include a 4%.
Compression.
Yeah, so
Compression.
part of that.
That's why I won't ask that
Bob,
question.
did you have a
Any more
question?
budgets then?
Yeah.
No, I'm good.
Any other questions? I guess the consensus is to move this budget forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I'd like to call a break for about, I say let's reconvene at about 10:20. And at that point, we'll go back and take the final resolution, and then we'll move on to the council.
Two houses down, he pulls hard into the backyard, right? They're all fenced in yards in the square block. Open up the gate, there's no one back there. Ah, this stupid dog, blah, blah, blah. Come back, deuce down. Do the same thing, he pulls into the backyard, nothing in there. So I square the block, can't find anything in the backyards. I'm like, what is going on here? So I talked to the husband, he said she walked east. So what had happened was she walked east in between the fence lines, and she was on like a 90-degree angle, wedged in between the fences. So the dog was smelling her, but the dumb handler was looking in the backyard and couldn't see her. So eventually we found her, she was all right. May have had to break a fence, but that's Maringo's problem, but she got it. I left as soon as I could. But that's just a little scenario where the dog is normally right and the handler is normally wrong. Want to tell a story on your side?
From the, like he said, I'm right now assigned to the narcotics unit, to the detectives division, so we don't anymore get as many calls for tracks, but we do daily assist the narcotics unit. So our usages are more narcotics involved. A couple months ago, the narcotics division had a search warrant in an apartment complex. They had some information about there might be drugs hidden in common areas in the complex. So we searched the apartment housing that we had the search warrant for, and then some of the common areas as well. And K9 Jet actually found a hole in the wall behind the dryers. And within that hole in the middle, if you can picture a big long line of dryers, all the way in the middle, they were using a tool to push the narcotics down the wall, and there was also a firearm in there.
Thanks for using WebEx. Visit our website at www.webex.com.
But, you know, with the dog, he can alert to the outside of that area and say, hey, there really is something in here. Go ahead and tear it up. So.
Yeah.
Length of service.
Typically you get them around a year to 2 years old, and they probably work till about 10, 11, as long as you take care of their joints. We have a treadmill at the substation, so we try to do it daily, every day at work. He's on there for about 20 minutes. I should probably get on myself. That's another story. A little too many donuts. What we're looking for in the dogs is, obviously, they like to work. We don't want mean, aggressive dogs. We just want a dog with high drive. High drive means when it's 90 degrees out, like it was yesterday, he'll work until he finds some. If it's 20 below in the winter, good for the dog, bad for the handler, but we want them always working no matter what time of the day or what temperature it is. The reason we use shepherds is, obviously we have families, we bring them home. My wife takes them on a walk every morning. He's part of the family, he goes to the park with us. As soon as they put on the uniform, they know it's a little change of pace, it's time to go to work. Some days he's a little more eager than I am, but
Are these the dogs that they take to schools?
Yep.
Yep. Yeah.
Yep, so the local school will contact us to do like a school search. We'll probably get anywhere from 7 to 10 dogs. If the dog does hit on a vehicle or a locker, that's the school administration's problem from there on out, and then they'll go through the school resource officer to deal with it. So we're just merely there to sniff, and that's it.
So the family, do you have any kids?
I do.
Yeah, and so does the dog play with the
Oh, yeah.
kids and stuff?
Like, it's hard to describe, but yeah, they're like normal dogs at home. He'll play fetch all day long. That's all he wants to do. Which is good and bad. Yeah. And he even likes my mother-in-law. That's another issue.
You know, this is on
tape.
She's down at Gary.
And how about training? How much training do they have for everything?
Sure. So the state of Illinois mandates at least 16 hours of training a month. And then each year we have to certify narcotics through a state certified test, which is basically, you envision 20 PVC pipes that are about 3 inches in diameter. 4 of them have narcotics. We'll have cocaine, heroin, methamphetamine, and cannabis. And the rest either have blank or like tennis balls, rubber gloves, packaging material. And they have to get 100%, otherwise they do not pass. If they do not pass the first time, you get a chance to retake it. If you don't pass the second time, you have to go down to the state and train for a week. Granted, we've been 100% for the last 4 years, and you've been doing, what, 2 years?
Everything else that we mentioned that the dogs do, the tracking, the scent work, the articles, the human scent work, everything they do is a perishable skill. So if they don't do it, if they don't use it, they're going to lose it. So we try and take them to training as often as we can to make sure that when we do get a call, it's, they're ready. We want them to be as useful as possible. We don't want them rusty, that's for sure.
Carol.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Well, I was just gonna say, because I saw the demonstration in the house.
Okay.
And what was interesting about that is, in some level, I mean, they're doing their job, but they're not vicious about it.
No.
In some ways, it's almost a game in terms
they're
of.
They're having fun.
Right. And so when they were doing that, when your dog was doing grabbing the arm, when it was released, they got to get to something else they could put their mouth on. Very quickly, you had that toy out.
Right.
So, which I think is interesting, because I think people look at it as being scared, so when you think of them being a family dog, right?
Yeah, they understand pretty well the difference between being at home and being at work. You can kind of see the change in the dog a little bit. But it's a reward for them to do the work. That's how they're bred. They want to work.
No.
So, sorry about that. Just curious, what's the difference between the German Shepherd and the Bloodhound? Do they do different work?
The Bloodhound mostly does like tracking or trailing. If you can picture their face, they have those long beefy ears that kind of biologically wafts the scent into their nose, so they're kind of trained for that. I think Dan's the only Bloodhound in the state of Illinois that does drugs though too, so my dog likes to whine. But besides, he doesn't do any bite work or anything like that. So.
You did call him a dumb dog.
He feeds off me a little bit. But his most favorite thing in the whole wide world is his toy. And this is what he works for. So if we do like a mile-long track, I'm supposed to play with him for a mile, and I get tired before he does.
Of course.
Like I said, most reason the police dogs phase out of the program is that they don't have a good play drive.
Don't get tired before the picture.
Because it's not willing to work for this toy. They're not going to work when it's 90 degrees out or freezing cold out. They just want to go back and squat. We make sure they like to play, and that's the reward for everything.
And is the retirement program that they get to stay with you until?
Yep, technically belongs to the sheriff's department right now. Retirement age, we buy him for $1. Hopefully I can save up 4 quarters. And then he becomes my liability. I pay for dog food, vet bills, stuff of that nature. Luckily, the vet in Woodstock donates all their services, so they've been wonderful for us. Shots, heartworm pills, flea and tick, it's all free. So. Quite the blessing.
Yes. Excellent.
We're going to exit.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
We even in the office get excited when the dogs come in. not something we see every day. All right, if you don't mind, I'm gonna run through some photos and then I'll jump
Very
into
good.
our budget. So, police social worker program, this is one of our highlights for the year. This was from our open house. You'll see some familiar faces in here. Our dispatch center, if you haven't had the chance to come over and walk through our dispatch center, we strongly encourage that. It's neat to see the environment that these folks work in. Here's our traffic unit. You'll see our drone there to the left of our deputy. This drone has the ability to map out a crime scene as well. It's got the software where it takes the pictures and maps it out for us. We use it often. See the same team doing traffic incidents. Motorcycles, these are out during the summer. We have 2. Okay. Oh, I'm gonna go back. I should introduce you. I'm sure you all know the Undersheriff, Rob Tatelman. I'm sorry, and this is Lieutenant Mike Moraski, who is soon gonna be our Chief of Operations in about a week here. So if you remember John Miller, he's gonna be replacing him. We're looking forward to that. More traffic unit guys. This is working with our trucks and our weighing them. We have operations or duties that we go out and we'll make sure that the trucks are on weight. Blood drive for our fallen deputy, Under Sheriff Tatelman right there. Some practicing. This is at our outdoor range next to the Department of Transportation. Our SWAT team doing more training. This is inside corrections. What you see there is the telephone that they can use to contact folks outside of the jail. Here is one of our holding cells when they're waiting to go upstairs to court. We put them here in the bullpen and then they are escorted up by a corrections officer into courts. Evidence, taking some fingerprints here off of a mug. Some of these pictures you'll notice are high quality. That's our new communication specialist, Emily. She's really upgraded our pictures. Some of them aren't, and you'll know right away which ones aren't, but. Here's some of our evidence seized from narcotics. We've got looks like some marijuana here. Here's some cash that was taken, weapons, more drugs. This is Deputy Kelly's canine. Here's our explorers. These individuals, if you go out to the fair or if you come to any of our events, you'll see them. Great group of people, and boy, do they really help us out. This was at the memorial for fallen deputies. The retirement of Under Sheriff Pagan that took place this year. I don't know that I'd call it a highlight, but he's doing well. We've seen him. Of course, we got a great replacement right here. John Miller's retirement, and of course, we've got a great replacement for him as well. John went to work for the Illinois Department of Natural Resources. Yeah, down in Springfield. So here's pictures from Shop with a Cop. We'll go really quick here. Officer of the Year, did you want to maybe mention something about him?
Trent Raup was a detective and was involved in an investigation that spanned over Illinois, Wisconsin, Indiana. It had to do with ultimately it was a homicide investigation at the end, but it had to do with a missing individual out of Holiday Hills, right? It was Holiday Hills. And Trent did a lot of work into it when other people it was easier to pass off to other agencies because there are a lot of individuals involved. FBI even got involved, but Trent was dedicated to bringing justice and was able to locate a storage facility in Winnebago County, which ultimately led to a search warrant, and her body was recovered inside a vehicle in that storage facility. So, we're really proud of what Trent did, but I think it just shows the dedication that our deputies have, not just to our community, but all communities involved in the cooperation that we've had with other agencies, and what we believe is the true meaning of law enforcement and bringing justice, you know, that Trent showed whatever he meant to do there.
Here he is receiving an award from Representative Wright. Records Division, this is one of our representatives, one of our clerks in the Records Division. And this was the homeschool.
No, this looks like, no, homeschool is in
I
block
got a
6.
picture of one of those.
Yeah. I think it's
This
just
is Deputy
presentation.
Crichton, you can't see his face, but he's the one that, it was mentioned, had gone around to the schools, yeah, to do those. Shop with a Cop again. Here's our social service worker program. These are donations that were made, and these are really important items when they come across individuals who they're assisting and giving referrals to. Again, our police social workers. Our motorcycles. Oh, and that's it. All right. All right, so I'm not gonna go through everything word by word because you guys have it. So some of the highlights from this year that you guys are all aware of. So we have the Axon program. So the Axon program is what we're able to get with the ARPA funds, unfunded mandate for body cameras that came through. So it's the body cameras, the tasers, the in-car cameras, and the evidence.com system. So we're rolling out that system as we speak. We're wrapping up the policies and procedures for the body-worn camera. Once those are done, then we can prepare to get those on our deputies. The in-car cameras are being installed. Tasers are ready to go once we have the body cameras up and running. One of our supplemental requests is for an IT analyst that will actually, manage that whole system for us.
I just have a quick question. The 600,000 that we set aside in, was it last year's budget or the year before
I
that?
think it was the year before.
What happened to that? I mean, how does that figure into everything?
So
Because
500,000 for vehicles?
No, so this is for the body
600,000 that
cameras.
we earmarked, 600,000
That
2 years
was,
ago.
2 years ago.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It rolled forward.
Yeah.
so we have that available too as a source of the funding.
It's all
right?
coming from the same pot,
Yes.
and it was,
But that was restricted, right?
it was targeted, I guess I would say.
Okay.
Yeah, and that was, we took comfort in knowing that as we made these commitments, you know, that those dollars were there.
Correct.
Thank you.
Correct. So for the next 5 years, the budget has been already assigned for that. But that's one of our big highlights. Another one, of course, is the police social worker program. We are in the process right now of hiring the last 2 caseworkers for that program, which will bring us up to 6. So we'll have the 6 caseworkers, the supervisor, and the director of that program. And then, of course, our training facility. So this has been a big project that's been going on. Again, it's at the old Village Hall, Cary, where we're remodeling that facility for regional training. And then the construction of a firing range down at the Public Works site. So where we're at with that right now, September 8th, we will be in front of the zoning board in Cary with our architects and construction manager for a conditional use permit for construction of the firing range. Around September 15th, we should have all of our design materials ready and in our construction manager's hands so they can start bidding out both projects. We're gonna bid them at the same time because we feel that that's the best way to move forward financially. We know that the firing range will take a little bit longer, but we wanna bid them out at the same time. So we're very excited about that. Once we're able to get those bids out and back, then we can come back and present a tighter timeline on what we're looking at for the training facility. But we're hoping a year from now we'll be up and running with trainings. Sheriff and undersheriff and chiefs from the municipalities have met. They are working on an intergovernmental agreement regarding an operation board per se. We've got our state's attorney and their attorneys looking into that. So that'll be a board that oversees the operations and budget. The whole purpose of that board is to determine what the membership fee is gonna look like. What's this gonna look like? Because the municipalities and the partners need to buy into this, so it's not just McHenry County. So we are coming up with a board that's gonna put that in place. So roughly, we anticipate everyone who's on board at the beginning are going to be the board members. Anyone after that will be partners, and there will be different fee schedules for that. There will be different fee schedules for entities that just need to use it for a day, maybe for a qualifying event or a certain training. But the goal is to have all of that in place before doors open. So hopefully we'll get this board put together here soon, letting the lawyers do what the lawyers do, and all the chiefs are eager to move forward because they have to go to their boards too and get approval and budget.
You remember that most of those municipal fiscal years are May 1, so that fits pretty well with kind of getting that program ready so those chiefs and city managers can talk with their city councils about what's appropriate for next year.
Yep. And as far as next year, we've got in our highlight sheet all of our goals listed out. You know, the big one is going to be transitioning with the new sheriff, which should be smooth. At the time that we put this through, we didn't know what was going to go on, but a big thing is going to be working with some of the changes that are coming up. So when Kathy Keefe did her presentation, she really focused on the Safety Act and how that was, she's anticipating going to affect her revenues and what that's going to do for everybody. Well, same in the sheriff's office. Not so much with the revenues, but with what our environment's going to look like in corrections, what it'll look like if we have to have bond hearings on Sundays and on holidays. That's going to affect staffing. It's a really big deal, but we under you know, the honorable judge, he's been meeting with all of us, and we've been trying to prepare the best that we can for that. Some things that I know we wanted to talk about, we have reduced our staffing in the jail when we moved into this current fiscal year. So we were at 146, we knew the ICE contract was going away, we went to 138. We are keeping 138 on the roster, but the sheriff has worked with county admin and agreed to only fund 132. And that's really in anticipation of what's going to happen after January 1st. So we are at 132 right now. We're running about 180, 190 inmates daily, which isn't that much less than where we were before. We've done a rough estimate of losing about 15% of that after January 1st, but we really don't know for sure. So we're gonna hold it at 132 and revisit probably around the end of the first quarter. Yes, sir.
At 132, we have a constraint already. And now we're going to have, I'm assuming, our deputies going out and chasing down the summonses instead of a bench warrant for arrest. Am I correct? So we're going to have, you're going to be more preoccupied with housekeeping to some extent.
Our focus will be a little bit different. I think that we've been working with the courts and figuring out what those summons look like. Papers are usually served by deputies, and we have civil process servers. I think we made it, we'll talk about it, but the reality is the civil process servers probably won't be serving the summons because those are individuals who don't want to go to court in the first place. But the reality of it is that maybe the summons are just going to offset what the warrants were originally. But the other part is we really don't know what it looks like. I think we are going to, assume the worst and hope for the best. But it's going to take a while before we see it because, we've been talking to the 102 different counties that have been throughout the state, and there's 102 difference of opinions on how it's going to look. There's some different interpretations of, what bail looks like. So the reality is we don't know. We have to be fluid, but I think that, when COVID hit, we saw a lot of the notice to appears issued as opposed to bringing people to jail. Pre-COVID, our number in the jails for county inmates, not ICE inmates, but county inmates was around 190. During COVID, when we were issuing those NTAs, which is gonna look a lot like what bail reform is gonna look like, we're at about 173. So we only lost 17 inmates as a whole. That number is not that drastic of a change. Now, is that what it's gonna look like moving forward with bail reform? I don't know. But like Sandy said, I think 15%, when we did the study, we looked at all the inmates currently incarcerated, what percentage is going to be released as it relates to the new statutes, and it wasn't that many people. So we're confident that we've been doing a pretty good job of staffing the 132 in the jail. And the way the jail is configured, you know, it's not a one-to-one. You know, if one inmate goes out, we can't lose one correction officer. That's not how it works. The way, you know, the way the jail is set up, and then also the factors that we put in place to promote not just inmate safety but correction officer safety. There's a process when people come in and get booked from the outside. They're held for 14 days. They're sure they're not sick, getting other inmates sick, getting correction officers sick. So there's step programs that we also have to look at, and we don't want to sacrifice all the programs that we've done in the jail too for inmates that, you know, need jobs when they get out, that continue their education, that are going through AA, NA, and all that other type of stuff. So there's a lot going on, you know, and especially for the individuals that are going to be required to continue to be housed. Obviously, those are higher risk individuals anyway, so we don't want to, you know, remove those services for those individuals. And if we start taking away, you know, correctional officers, the first thing that goes is programs. We can keep, you know, inmates locked up 24/7. We've seen that that's not what, I don't think the philosophy of this agency in this county has for, you know, for individuals that are incarcerated.
Well, I think the requirements, and this is just me thinking, but I think that there's going to be an impact on the labor intensity in your office, and I think that it's going to be more.
We'll see. I think, you know, of course, I'd like to bring more individuals on, but I think the reality is we don't know.
Right.
And I'm willing to, you know, just like we always do, look at the situation and analyze it and see where we need to go from it, because that's what we do on a daily basis anyway.
Excellent.
Yeah, so I think staying status quo right now, at least for our office, makes sense. And, you know, we're committed to coming back to the table and looking at what's happening, and whether that change is gonna be first quarter, second quarter, we just don't know.
And to
So,
dovetail on that, obviously, we have to keep a eligibility list. So we announced that we are hiring both for patrol and corrections. We exhausted our corrections list. We know we're not hiring people. We exhausted that list earlier this year. Right now, well, as of last week, we only had 10 applicants. And the reality is no one wants to do this job anymore. So if we were to cut people and then realize that we needed more people, to bring someone on would be, I mean, it's difficult. It is a difficult task that we've had, and we try to increase our recruitment efforts. But I think that's another reason why we want to just kind of sit and look at the numbers right now, let it be where it's at, and then figure it out from there.
Thank you. Carol?
So I was just gonna say, so you're holding it at 132, but you're allowing for 138.
so it's 138 on the roster,
Right,
but
on the
it's not
roster.
gonna be funded. So essentially, let's say a year from now, there's a change and we need to actually fill those positions. I don't know if it's gonna be set up where administration can just do that, but I anticipate having to do a resolution that would, you know, come back and ask for funding of those positions.
The
So-
roster controls who we hire, who we can put on payroll. So if we can leave the spots on the roster, that's
Right.
one less step. We're still gonna need to fund those positions. And as Rob and Sandy are saying, you know, if June 1st we're realizing that the numbers aren't in fact down in the jail, maybe they're back up, we need to add to that, to 132, 134. He's gonna need to put some more money there, probably, but at least we won't need to create the positions.
Okay, so then the question is, when you say you've exhausted the corrections part of it, right? Does that mean that, is there a process that you go through that you have something like available? You know what I'm saying?
That's the eligibility list, yeah, so that's what we're
Okay.
creating, that's why we've opened that back up.
Okay,
So applicants can be on that list.
so you can move faster.
If
That's
we
a
need,
different
yes,
system I'm
exactly.
talking about.
Right,
It's
right,
not
no,
allow
but
the
it's
app to hire
connected.
off the list.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
We can't just hire up friends. It's gotta come from this list, they've gone through the testing and they're ready to go.
Right, but you're keeping that open, and then that allows for that
Correct.
movement over if you
Yes.
need it, so that's.
And
Especially
we
for
really need some
retirements
females,
or-
right?
Right.
I mean, that's, for no other reason than the search, we need to find some female corrections officers.
Desperately, yes.
So, you were talking about the current jail population and the average is 180 to 190 possibly, and it could be reducing.
Yes.
So in your performance indicators, 2023, it says 200. Just wondered why you asked me.
Oh, so we do performance indicators, we do this budget very early in the year. And it was around 200 at that time. So we didn't actually go below 200 until April, and so that was already,
We were at 196 on Monday.
yeah, so that was already done, for the average.
We've been seeing the numbers fluctuate between about 185 to about almost 200 consistently.
Oh, you're talking about projected too?
Yes,
For
the
the 200 projected?
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
This
the
state,
jail's projecting that it's gonna go down and come back up because people aren't gonna show up to court and they're gonna end up back with us.
we've also been holding for the Department of Corrections, right?
Yeah, so the two other issues that we've run into is that DOC is a little bit slow in taking their inmates, so that process has been slow. And then the other issue that not just our agency's running into, but the state of Illinois is running into, they changed the process for taking individuals that are not fit to stand trial. We used to take them to Elgin. The state changed that policy and opened it up for the entire state. And it's turning into like a buddy system where I think people work behind closed doors to get their inmates that need help out of their jail so they don't have to deal with them. But it's statewide. So, I mean, we can be transporting individuals that have been found unfit for trial as far as 6 hours, 7 hours away that are down south. But we're required to hold them as well, while they really shouldn't be in our jail. So, I mean, when you think about that process, those individuals aren't held with, general population either. So that creates management issues, training issues, just a whole slew of other things come with that. Because the state has kind of changed directions, it's kind of, it's another unfunded mandate, an unfunded resource that we have to manage too.
Okay. All right, so if you don't mind, I want to jump into the general fund budget. Revenues haven't changed too much. They've gone up with some of our intergovernmental agreements that exist with the police social worker program in anticipation for the training facility on those intergovernmental agreements. Expenditures, you'll see, although balanced, there is an additional column for non-departmental inflation. So, to be very honest, the request to maintain a maintenance budget has been extremely difficult because what was maintenance last year is no longer this year. It's obviously, there's natural growth in our budget, which is personnel, and some of our contracts that we've already committed to. So inmate healthcare, inmate food, those we've already committed to, so there's gonna be some growth in there. But our everyday commodities have gone up. So maintenance, to keep a maintenance budget is not something that we can really feasibly do. It's very difficult to do. Admin has worked with us. They ask us when we budget, not to budget for worst case. I pushed the envelope a little bit, and I did because there's a reality there. And so what they did was they took those dollars that I put in there due to inflation, and they moved it out of the budget, and they put it in this non-departmental fund that can be used should we need it. And one example is fuel. So fuel's been all over the place. We've had to come before you and request additional dollars in fuel. Our bills are still very high. So 18 months ago, maybe 20 months ago, every 2 weeks we were paying $12,000. Now we're around $28,000 every 2 weeks. Is it gonna stay that way? Probably not. We're already seeing some adjustments, but we know it's not gonna go down to that maintenance $12,000 every 2 weeks. So those are some of the difficulties. Yes, sir.
So your fuel cost more than doubled?
Yes.
Well, it had to be more due to activity as well, correct?
No, that's not due to activity.
Was it because of the old contract going into new contracts, or how did that work?
So with fuel, because of how Opus works, and now I can't intelligently talk about this. We used to have contracts, but all of the bidders based it on Opus, which gave a number that we had to use. So Adam Latondra came back and said, that fluctuates and everybody's using it, so we don't necessarily need a contract. We're kind of at the mercy of the market. Now, we can change if we're not happy with our services, but we don't have to do a contract.
Because intuitively, you're looking at, I mean, the argument's been that, gas prices are twice as much. You're spending more than twice as much on a weekly basis.
Gas prices are based on almost 2 years ago. We're paying more than double, for sure.
Well, yeah, 26.
And we haven't increased deputies on the road. They should be going down because now we're not going and picking up individuals from Chicago for the ICE contract, but we're still, bringing our individuals to court. But we haven't increased the mileage that we're driving. They're pretty conservative. I wouldn't say that they're driving more. But that's an example of how inflation is impacting our budget. I mean, everything from our Clorox wipes up, and I guess my whole point of saying that is it's really challenging for us to maintain that maintenance budget if that's how the board moves forward without looking at any other types of revenues. It's really difficult. Yes, ma'am.
Is that, I'm gonna ask Peter, is that gonna be outlined for us when we have our discussions on the budget? All of those potential options and maintenance and?
Well, that's exactly why we segregated these the way we are.
Right.
Yeah, your budget policy says it's a maintenance budget, but some of these are just so plain obvious that they're going to have to be met. And
Just ask.
I think that the question becomes what's baseline as we develop fiscal 24.
Right.
But we don't know you tell me what fuel commodities are going to do.
Right.
Up and down and up and down and up and down.
Yeah.
They're not going down that much.
No, but they're gonna go up again too.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So as far as revenues, expenditures, that's where we're at with that, and that's the general fund.
But before you go on,
Yes.
so the $500,000 capital outlay, is that for the training center? And the expenses?
So
Then it says there's a grant for that?
571. No. So that is for our marine units. We had put money aside for the construction of a new marine unit facility. We've been working with the city of McHenry on a partnership for that. So as you guys might know or remember, our marine unit, we lease a trailer, and it's at Miller Park in McHenry. So they're allowing us to be on their property, and that's where our marine unit is out of. This board has signed an agreement with the city of McHenry where the sheriff's office would build the facility, and then they would help maintain it by providing water, sewer, utilities. We've run into a couple problems. Miller Park is on a floodplain, there's stormwater issues, running water is impossible. So we have the money sitting there because really that partnership and that location would be ideal for our marine unit, and we hope that they can find something creative to do. We do not anticipate it being that much. So we had Wold, who the county uses, they had done an initial estimate, and it was $290,000. That was quite a while ago, and as we know, as you guys know from facilities, the cost of all these commodities and building materials have gone up. So we had these dollars from a grant, so we put it in there. Okay, so on the next page, we have our DUI conviction fund. This comes in from fees and fines from individuals who have DUIs. This is a separate fund. we budget for it to offset or supplement a lot of our areas when we can. Has to be related to DUI, so some of our trainings we can do. If we're purchasing certain radars, we can do that out of this fund. So this is a nice fund to have on the side, and when we can use it, we do use it to reduce the impact on the general fund. The next one is our inmate welfare fund. This is, again, another outside fund. The fees into this fund come from mainly our commissary that is out there, and then inmate welfare has to be used on inmates, has to be above and beyond what we're expected to do operationally. So we do a lot of things out of here for them, including paying our inmate workers, and purchasing. We've purchased vehicles using these funds for our road crews. So we don't know what's gonna happen to this fund now as the years go on, but it's a healthy fund, and we're still gonna be able to purchase games, books, all kinds of things.
So just wondering why there's a 43% increase in fees and charges for services that were in the revenue portion?
That's for the inmate welfare?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's based on our, not only what is going on right now with our inmates, even at a lower, but we're gonna have the texting ability. We're hoping to have that up and running, and the texting is estimated to increase the revenues.
So they'll have to pay for texts?
Per line, the text, if they choose to do that. They can still have the video, they can still do the phone calls. This is an option, and when we went out to bid, every vendor came back with this capability. We have worked on policy for that, so that it's not day and night, you know, and it's limited. They can't go past what the funds are in there, but it seems to be a popular tool that's used at other correction facilities. Then the last thing, I guess, would be our supplementals. I know that this supplementals usually come as a request when the full budget comes to the board. Again, we have our one individual that is an IT analyst for our Axon system that we need, and then the replacement of shields, which that's one of those items that really should be in the budget, but it happens every 5 years, so we don't budget for it every 5 years, so it comes for it as a supplemental. Any questions?
Everybody in favor of moving this budget forward?
Yes.
Yes.
September 17th, we're having an open house from 10 to 2, so please come by the sheriff's office and enjoy some hot dogs and burgers and meet staff and see some demos. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
That's on a Saturday?
Saturday,
Yes.
yes.
Okay,
You got it.
moving right along here.
No, that I'll stay for.
Court administration.
All right, so first of all, this is going to be briefer than in years past. I actually have to get the judges back across the street for a meeting about the Safety Act, so that we can deal with these unknowns, right? So we're going to move through these a little quicker than we have in the past, so.
I think the committee thanks you for that.
Absolutely. And your clicker's not working. Nope, it's all right. Okay, so we're just gonna hit the highlights and the goals for court admin real quick. We've completed the renovation project for the law library and the courtrooms. We certainly want to thank the committee and the county board and our county administration for that. We are in the process of finishing up a digital signage project. Those funds came through the Guidehouse Technology Refresh Program through the Administrative Office of the Illinois Courts and the Supreme Court. Again, I want to thank county administration for being a great partner in that. And we're also going to be continuing to develop the approach to bench software. That's an internal software that David Kozlowski and myself have been involved in developing for judges to use to better manage dockets and access information and electronic signatures for orders. So some of the goals, actually, we just met this one, the replacement of the FTR gold reporting system. That actually occurred last night. We got word on Thursday that the state was coming to do that. This wires all of our courtrooms, records all of the audio, that's how transcripts are made and how we keep our record. Also, we're going to be looking at exploring a family treatment court. This will be down in our juvenile court with Judge Harmon. This is going to take some time to take a real good look at to see whether or not this is something we can do as part of our special projects or DUI court, drug court, mental health court. So we'll be certainly looking at that. And of course, the implementation of the Safety Act and bail reform measures that we've all been talking about. So we're going to get right into the numbers. We're going to give you a maintenance budget, $695,000 less personnel for administration. Libraries also maintenance budget. Special projects as well. We do have supplemental requests there. Our peer recovery specialist, that was part of our budget last year. We would like to take that position to full-time. It's been a part-time position. We have seen that the demand for that service has increased sufficiently enough to increase that position. We've had conversations with the mental health board. They're funding that position, so it's not coming out of the general fund. So that's something that we will would like to have. Revenues, yeah, unfortunately, again, with the Safety Act and what we've been seeing, fees for services are just going to continue to go down. It's hard to collect when there's nothing to collect. If we're not collecting the bail and Kathy's not applying the bail to fees and to costs, we're going to have to try to get them on the back end. The law library, surprisingly, those fees have been flat, which is good. Special projects, we continue to look for grant funding. We just got word last week that we received $116,000 for a DUI grant through the Illinois Department of Transportation. So we'll be talking with county admin about that and how we're going to wrap that up into the budget and how we want to do that. So for court admin, that's all I've got. So I'll take any questions from court admin.
Questions, comments from the committee?
No, hello, everyone.
That was easy.
I didn't bring a chew toy for Dan.
You know, that's got to be a record. That's got to be a record. That's a record.
Gold stars are coming.
I'm going to see if I can beat him. No, just kidding. I will be brief though. So for probation and court services, our 2022 highlights, we also continue to analyze and make some adjustments internally for the Pretrial Fairness Act. We hired a third pretrial officer in anticipation of the increased people that will be out on release and release conditions. And we continue to have ongoing conversations with all the stakeholders in the system about the needed adjustments. Also pulling from our highlights and goals, or our highlights, we do have a new contract with our electronic monitoring vendor, which allows us, it saved us well over $20,000 already by renting rather than leasing, and we're able to have all the equipment that we need to meet the needs of the court. We continue to enhance our case management system every year. In 2022, we added automation, which allows for the tracking of a lot of our non-reporting clients, the supervision clients, court supervision. These are people that are not assigned an officer, but there are a lot of them, 4,000 plus a year. And so knowing what they have to do, when it's due, and how to communicate with them in an automated way allows our staff to be way more efficient and effective. And we're adding that right now as we speak to the reporting side, so the probation side of things, so officers can spend less time tracking what to do with clients and more time actually doing stuff with clients. As far as that last highlight for 2022, in 2015, this county, the 22nd Circuit, became the first county in the whole state to do EPICS, which is Effective Practices in Community Supervision. In 2018 and 19, the state moved to something similar to core correctional practices, but we're way ahead of the curve, and so we assist other counties like Lake County and Kane have both come to do site visits and learn about how we are doing what we're doing. A lot of our information and our forms and our policies are what the state uses for their statewide effort. So we continue to do that. I will be working with Leo Rizzi at the Mental Health Board to present to the different stakeholders later, the mental health stakeholders in this community, so they can better understand what we're doing there and how we can support them. For 2023, we came in front of you guys a couple months ago about funding for a drug testing vendor. That vendor is now on site. They're doing drug testing in our office today. But our goal for 2023 was the integration of the two case management systems so that there's not manual data entry and information goes back and forth. And we're also, the collaboration piece of that is with our IT and all the internal pieces here, but we are also collaborating with the Sheriff's Department and Woodstock PD for locations to do testing on the weekends. As we move forward with this testing, it will include weekends, which is that best practice that I shared with some of you guys before. And we need a location that's open on the weekends. So the sheriff has been great, and we're working toward that solution. Woodstock will be our temporary solution in between. Pretrial fairness, you guys have probably heard that all morning, and you're probably tired of it. So I will tell you that we continue to look forward to 2023 and the adjustments that we'll need to make in 2023. We're in conversations with our GPS and alcohol monitoring vendor. They do that through a bracelet that monitors your perspiration, and seeing to it that folks can be put on these, especially GPS in a domestic violence kind of case, that these folks can be put on that immediately so that they can be released from the jail if that's the decision of the court to release, and not have to wait for a vendor to come out and put that equipment on them. As Sandy said before us, we'll revisit this after the first quarter or so and look at what the implications are and what adjustments we need to continue to make. We will continue to enhance our case management system in 2023. The Administrative Office of Illinois Courts has a massive data collection project. They want to know the nitty-gritty details about every kind of client that we deal with and how we deal with them. And so we've been in conversations with our vendor about modifying our case management system to comply with the state's requirements, and that'll be ongoing as we kind of get more information from the AOIC about how that integration will happen. So those are the highlights and goals. As far as budget, we are putting forward from the general fund a maintenance budget, less the personnel costs. And with an asterisk there that I'll come to at the third part of the budget request. So maintenance budget there. As far as from our probation service fee fund, it is also a maintenance budget for 2023. We are asking for a new position, which is a supplemental. However, the Administrative Office of Illinois Courts has agreed to fund the entire salary of that position, and so it's just the benefits cost to the county.
For how long?
For that.
For how long?
Indefinitely. It's a funded position.
Good.
And they fund it at 100% of the salary, not the benefits cost. So it is a research or a probation analyst position that is going to help us with this data collection effort that I kind of alluded to before. The AOIC is also requiring us to report with much more granularity on our spends. So we have to report how we spend for pretrial, problem-solving courts, probation, to the tiniest detail, like postage, which we're working on right now. Having an analyst who can, extract and analyze that data and help us to report on that will be very helpful, and it'll take that away from my deputy directors who need to kind of lead their staff and their departments. As far as hopeful additional revenues in 23, we will be coming forward here, not immediately, but in the relative near future with some ordinances and administrative order to increase our tiered rates for drug testing. Through the process of determining how to work with our drug testing vendor, we found that the rates that we charge for alcohol and drug testing do not cover the cost. And so we're not going to try and make money on people, but we need to try and break even for that expense. We are one of the few counties in the state that charges $25 a month for probation service fees, so we'll look at that as a determination. Other counties charge $50, which is the most that you can charge. Again, to the point of the Pretrial Fairness Act, though, we can assess the fee, but whether or not we collect the fee.
There's no longer a bond to
Right.
draw on.
Yeah.
Correct.
What do we need to do to get that done quicker rather than
Which part?
the $50 going from 25 to 50? It sounds to me like a resolution.
We will discuss it, and I will discuss it with my bosses to my left here.
I think that we should, if we
Yeah.
can't leave it on the table. Not in this environment.
Yes.
So is that then the increase that you had in fees and charges for services revenue line?
It is.
Yeah.
It is,
Yes.
okay.
Yep. Thank you. And so with the Pretrial Fairness Act though coming, we do anticipate that more people will be put on electronic monitoring or GPS as a condition of their release instead of money. And while we may not be able to collect that up front through the bond, the fee will be assessed. And some of those things the client pays the vendor directly, but some of them we pay the vendor and collect from the client. So there's a potential for more there. That is it for me as far as the budget. There is one more slide here on impacts of pretrial fairness that both of us will talk to. Yes?
I'm gonna pile on the chairman's comments too. Under the current environment and with everything that's coming, I would tell you that this committee is signaling to you sooner rather than later on proposals of assisting you increase so that we are covering costs and we are getting the monies that we deserve.
So
Just
keep in mind, and we certainly hear you, and we will certainly look at everything. It's not just a simple increase from 25 to 50.
Understood.
Under the statute, there's a whole
Series
different set of things.
Which again, it underlines starting sooner rather than later because there is a process,
But
right?
if there's a gap that the taxpayers are filling now that maybe they don't have to fill,
Absolutely.
then we can't leave any stone unturned there.
No, you're 100% correct, and we will certainly do that. So you've heard all morning, and we've done a presentation before about the Safety Act. It is the big unknown. We're continuing to have meetings, hence the reason I need to get the judges back across the street so that hopefully we can start making some decisions as to what is this going to look like in McHenry County? Because I believe, as the sheriff alluded to, or the undersheriff, sorry, alluded to this morning, there's 102 different ways that this thing's getting looked at. So, detention hearings, are we going to be doing them on weekends and holidays and Sundays? Is the building going to be open? There's some tremendous impacts here. And that's why meeting with state comptrollers, we're going to continue to have those meetings so that we're all rowing the same direction at the same time. Judge, do you want to jump in here?
Well, what I wanted to say was, you heard what the sheriff said about the Safety Act. I know you heard from Kathy earlier about loss of revenue with bond. What I'm going to ask you to do over the next year is have an open mind and be flexible, because this is new to everybody. We can't tell you with any certainty how it's all going to work out. Let us get some time in, and you folks get some time in, whether it's 4 months, 6 months, or even a year, and we'll have a much better understanding of how this is all going to pan out. When I go, we talk about 102 different opinions because there's 102 different counties, and well, there's 24 circuits that take care of those 102 counties, and there are maybe not 24 different opinions, but there's a lot of different opinions among the chief judges as to what to do, how to do it. Can you avoid holding court on Sunday or holiday? We think there's a model where you can do that. That would not increase costs, but it's eventually going to be an appellate court that says you did it right or you did it wrong. Okay, and if they say you did it wrong and you have to have court on Sunday, your costs are going to go up. So I just ask you, be flexible and over the next year. That's the biggest thing. We are meeting with stakeholders. Even the stakeholders in the county here have different opinions and different ideas, and we're trying to work through those the best we can. Do you have a question?
Yeah, I do. Add on to that. Do you think that there's going to be significant changes addressed during the next General Assembly or during veto session? Or you think this is it and it's just how it's interpreted?
I guess I'm a pessimist on that.
I'm asking, yeah.
Thinking that this is it.
Okay.
Because we had discussions, with lobbyists, and I can't push the Illinois legislature any more than you can. right? In fact, you probably can do a better job at it than I can. I do think this is it, and we have to prepare that this is it. You know, if they make changes, we'll deal with it. You know, we can make modifications, but we have to assume that what they've given us is what we've got to work with. I think that's the only way you can approach it.
Could we get a copy of that?
Which
The impacts slide?
I'm sorry?
Can we get a copy
Oh,
of the
of course,
impacts
absolutely.
slide? I'd
Yes,
appreciate
absolutely.
that,
Yeah, yeah.
At least just for this committee.
Right, absolutely. I'll email it to the entire committee.
Yeah. So
This like that.
that's my big push on that. And since I have the floor for a minute, I just want to tell you that my term ends November 30th. I want to thank you for the years I've had the opportunity to appear in front of you. Continuing on as a circuit judge, but I won't be chief judge. I want to introduce Judge Michael Camille, who's our next chief judge starting December 1. And I know all of you or most of you know him, and he'll continue to do a great job for the 22nd Circuit. And it's been a pleasure appearing in front of you when I've had the opportunity. You've always treated me and the entire 22nd Circuit with great respect, and I want to thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very much.
So, any more comments or questions for the gentleman? Are we all in favor of moving this one forward?
Yes.
Looks like we are. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
very much for your time.
Have a great day.
You too.
Can I just ask a question? Can we just get the slide decks from every presentation we get? Because they're giving us additional information that's not currently in our packets. Would that be okay?
That's okay with me.
Great, thank you. Just so they're not
Kiki,
asking.
you're up.
Hello. I figured Dan was gonna have, like a 30-minute PowerPoint presentation.
Well, I think he set a record.
Yeah, so I was shocked to hear that. I was in my office watching the meeting, so I didn't prepare a PowerPoint presentation.
So now you think you have more time, right?
What?
Now you have more time,
I
right?
do.
Oh.
And my technical expertise is a little limited, so with kids in college, I wouldn't have had them to help me get it prepared. So good morning, I am Tiki. Last name is Schulte. I got married 2 weeks ago. Thank you. Still the director for McHenry County Emergency Telephone System Board. So we bring forward today our fiscal year 2023 budget, and starting with the goals and highlights. Similar to years past, we've assisted the McHenry County Police and Fire agencies that utilize the StarCom radio system with equipment, expenses, and annual maintenance fees. And I do know the Sheriff's Department has come forward as far as purchasing this equipment. Again, as a reminder, the ETSB supports and maintains the 911 infrastructure for the 3 dispatch centers, or PSAPs, in the county. We support the 43 police and fire agencies within the county. So different than county IT, where county IT supports the IT for the 26 departments of the McHenry County government, we support the services of the 43 police and fire agencies within the entire county. So with these agencies, we implemented a grant program where the McHenry County ETSB is the grantor, the agencies are the grantees, and based on a calculation on the number of sworn officers for police or the number of calls for service for fire, an amount is set every year during the budget process of what the ETSB would have available to grant to these agencies. So based on that calculation, they're eligible to receive their grant based on production of receipts for expenses that they have had, their annual maintenance fees, and that type of thing. We also did something similar last year, which was implementing for the fire departments a reimbursement program for the U.S. Digital Station Alerting. What the station alerting does is utilizes our computer-aided dispatch system and automates the message or the dispatch, if you will, to the fire agencies, providing a computerized dispatch, including the location of the incident, the type of incident, and what units are due to respond. So this minimizes the telecommunicators' need to, while they're on the phone with the caller, getting the 911 information, getting the particulars about the call, talking to the officers in the field, the system is taking that time and utilizing the computerized system to dispatch the agencies that are due to respond. So that frees up a little bit of time for the telecommunicator to be able to get additional information, provide that to the units responding. A highlight for 2022, personally for me, I achieved the APCO, which is the Association of Public Safety Communication Officials Institute. I obtained my Certified Public Safety Executive Certification. I am the 6th in the state to receive that certification. There are approximately 170 throughout the United States that have achieved that. It was I had to apply, provide, I had to find my college diploma because we needed to provide copies of our diplomas and whatnot. It was a 6-month course. The first 2 sessions, first 24 weeks were online, and then the final 2 weeks were a capstone course at the corporate headquarters, and it was 8 to 5 every day. I hadn't written a paper in 30 years since in college. We had to write papers and give presentations and that type of thing. So it was an amazing opportunity, and I'm very grateful to my board for their support and encouragement in participating in this program, and also to be, in the elite. As I said, 6th in the state. There are 102 counties in the state of Illinois. So to be 6th in the state, I'm very proud of myself on that.
And you got married.
Thank you.
And you got married.
Well, yeah. Well, that was just 2 weeks ago. And we are also in the process of implementing the statewide EZINet, and I'm drawing a blank on that. A statewide network, a web, if you will, for the next generation 911 network. All the public safety answering points within the state of Illinois are going to be on the same network. The state of Illinois contracted with AT&T to provide this network and infrastructure, and our 3 public safety answering points in the county will be on that system. It's a phased approach, obviously. Again, while we have 102 counties, we also have multiple dispatch centers. We have 3 alone in our own county. So it's a tiered implementation that's being driven by the state. And so what that will allow us is the technology of being able to accept additional technological calls for service. Right now we have phone. We're also able to receive text messages, but this will also provide video opportunities and whatnot as technology progresses in the future. Goals for 2023, we're looking to implement a STARCOM 21 GPS location module on the portable radios for the agencies that opt in to have that functionality to provide a more accurate location for first responders to enhance their safety. Currently, a majority of the agencies have AVL, which is automatic vehicle location, which is tied to the laptop that is within their squad car. However, or fire apparatus. However, once they leave the vehicle, they have their portable radios on them, and so having GPS location on that, if they're involved in a situation where they're having to go after an offender or are tracking, looking for someone in a wooded area, let's say, this will give us GPS coordinates of where that officer is. As we know, some very horrible things have happened in the last number of years, specific to officers within McHenry County, and their safety is very important to us. We also will continue with the STARCOM 21 grant program, which will provide financial support. As you've heard from the other departments today, limited funding is going to be limited, for some of the departments and due to legislative changes. So we want to be able to assist the agencies in keeping officers on the streets. If it's a decision of I need to pay for this or I need to cut an officer, we all know officers are getting cut. So in order to protect the citizens and your constituents, it's important to the Emergency Telephone System Board that we provide funding to kind of offset some of the expenses that we're able to assist them with that are within the guidelines of the Emergency Telephone System Act and what we, the ETSB, are able to provide funding for. Southeast Emergency Communications Consolidated Dispatch Center in Crystal Lake is looking to build out and renovate their center to enhance efficiency, redundancy, and also countywide backup solutions. We do have the 3 public safety answering points, and currently each center has 9 positions. So in the event of either a physical building issue or equipment issue, if there's a problem with the communication, the fiber between the agencies, they can relocate to one of the other centers and answer their calls and dispatch their officers. We're also looking to, in 2023, replace the 911 logging recorders in the remaining 2 PSAPs. The Sheriff's Department was done last year. We will be doing CCOM and NERCOM, which is located in McHenry, to provide the most current technology and functionality. Are there any questions on that? Moving to the full-time equivalents, as you have that document in front of you. You may or may not recall in November of 2021, I came forward and discussed the salary survey and staffing survey that was done, that we had hired a consultant to do. And it was recommended and approved by the county board for the Emergency Telephone System Board to hire an assistant director and a part-time PC specialist. Those were to go into effect December 21st. We are still in that process of working on job descriptions and finalizing those requirements of what we are looking for in employees. And so we will be adding those 2 staff members. Our goal is to have it done by the end of the fiscal year of 2022.
So right now you have 4.5?
I have 5.0. Yeah, we have 5 full-time staff members right now. We're looking to add the assistant director, which would be a full-time position, and then also the PC specialist. Our technology specialists' job description and responsibilities have changed and is reflected in the FTE for 2021-2022 as the ETSB network system manager. So I have that also on the org chart. Were there any questions on the organizational chart or anything? Mm-hmm. All right, and so moving on into the budget. The documents you receive are quite truncated compared to how we prepare our budgets. We do have 2 funds. We have a operation fund and then I'm drawing a blank on, and everybody left. Well, that's nice. Thanks, Kevin and Carrie. So we have 2 funds, operational and I can't remember what the name of the other one is. However, we are solely funded by the 911 surcharge, and I do want you to be aware that the sunset is due to, the surcharge is due to sunset in December of 2023. Originally, it was, I believe 2021, 2022. However, due to there was some cooties going around due to COVID, it was extended until 2023. And huge thank you to Board Member Althoff, Senator Althoff. She'll always be Senator Althoff of me. She was very instrumental in the development and the moving forward of our 911 surcharge. We will solely miss you being down in Springfield as we embark on this journey again in the upcoming year. So we have always lived a very lean, budget, taking into account in previous years, the sunset was almost every year for a couple of years,
Yeah.
maybe 2 years out. So we've always budgeted with the anticipation that we potentially could lose our funding. If we do lose our funding, then that, those expenses would then go back to the municipalities and the county as a whole. The Emergency Telephone System Board a few years ago, we implemented a capital improvement plan. 5-year this year, last year we renamed it to our investment plan. We have budgeted out for 10 years and are very cognizant of our expenditures, what we can, if necessary, cut out of our budget if services to agencies and whatnot. But our fund is in balance. As you are all aware, anytime the ETSB has a project that we're looking to implement, we include it in our budget, but primarily it's over 30,000, so I'm bringing it forward to you in resolution for your support and approval. We move the money within our budget. We allocate it in our capital outlay in the 6,000 budget, but then once we have a specific invoice, quote, whatever, then we'll move it into the appropriate category for appropriate accounting measures. Any questions on that?
Kelly?
So you were talking about the capital outlay of $1 million last year and this year. Did I hear you right? And that's actually just preparing for when the surcharge is eliminated?
No, that is for, so we have a multi-page document for our investment plan, and so we have projects that through our ETSB that we approve of what we're looking to do in that upcoming year. And without knowing, we have an idea of what the expenses are gonna be, but rather than putting them in the 5,000 or 4,000, and it depends on, we talk with Kevin, with Pete, and find where the best place to account for it in our budget is. So we don't want to assume it's going to go into the 5,000s if it really is a capital expense and should be in the 6,000s. So for upcoming projects for 2023, we have over $900,000 that we're looking to expend with the different projects that I spoke of in our goals for 2023.
Any other questions? Any other comments?
You don't know, you want to know about my performance indicators? You can read that on your own. We have no way of estimating the number of 911 calls. We have no way of knowing why the call volumes have dropped.
Well, probably COVID.
We did, actually, there was a huge decrease. There was a huge decrease in the number of fire incidences because people weren't calling 911 to go to the hospital because nobody wanted to go to the hospital.
So is the board in favor of moving this forward?
Yes.
Yes.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Steve.
Thanks for hanging.
Oh, no, it's fine. I'm grateful for the electronic ability to be able to watch it.
We're going to have a brief update on legislative, and then we're going to call this meeting.
That sounds wonderful. I'll keep it short. So, legislative update. It looks increasingly unlikely that there will be a special session before the veto session this fall for the General Assembly. That being said, ISACO is working to develop its legislative program for 2023. They have been in contact with Peter Austin and Scott Hartman in regards to the Pretrial Fairness Act and what burdens it has caused on the county for possible enhancements, not repeal, enhancements in the 23.
Okay, just for educational purposes, why is one of the reasons they're not going to call a special session? You're going to defer. You're going to defer to me.
I'm going to defer to you.
I'm just going to tell you one of the reasons that they're not going to do a special session is because they need the supermajority vote, and they're not going to get it, and they know that, and so there's no reason for them to go back to special session and attempt to pass legislation where they know that they have to get the 2/3 majority. They're going to wait when they don't need that requirement and they need a simple majority, and that's the decision that they made, and that's why they're not going to go back. Just so you know, there is a game plan.
Okay, thank you. That being said, the time is also coming for us to start thinking about what we would like to see in our 2023 legislative program. To that end, you know, as you guys have ideas, feel free to pass them on to me. I'm going to be putting out a form for our elected officials and department heads to start bringing forth ideas for us. And already we've had a very fruitful meeting as far as legislative ideas. Thank you, Member Altoff, for highlighting for me different possible legislative pieces that we can bring for Coroners, Clerk, and ETSB. So again, just as you have ideas, feel free to bring them out. We are also going to be having our representatives and senators come to our meetings over the next couple of months to try to get their ideas on what they would like to include, you know, possibly if we would like to put it in our program, and see what they would like to support going forward into the next session. And that is what I have.
And to draw their attention to things that are obviously important to us that you just heard today. You know, if there's a coroner's initiative, if there's an initiative from the courts, whatever that is, that should be part of our general platform, and we should share that with our elected reps.
And
Sorry.
also,
Done.
I think I heard something that we might want to consider from Keith too.
Yeah, we discussed that, yeah.
That one
Right.
won't sneak up on anybody. If it is.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it's a foundational revenue for everybody's 911 systems.
Is there ever, just because I don't know the process, is there ever like a working group or something like that that just kind of sits down and hashes out, like what are some of the things that we've heard and where are some ways we want to go?
Right here, this is your
So
working
this is the
group.
working group. So, you know, we could be talking about this even further before over the next couple of months. Okay. I wasn't sure if there was any other kind of conversations going on. I'm sure individually, but I just wasn't sure in terms of that. Okay. Sounds good.
Peter, do you have anything for us?
No, we will send out, Kathy will send out the presentations from earlier today. However, the sheriff's presentation is too large. That one, with all those beautiful high definition pictures, we can't send that one. So maybe we can make some prints of some of the data.
They just want the data too. I'm sorry?
I can print them and put them in your mailboxes.
Oh, that'd be great.
The other ones I've requested from them, but I haven't received them yet.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone, for your time this morning.
Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Oh, yeah.
We have a motion, we have a second, all in favor say aye. Aye. Thank you, everybody, this was a long one. I've heard of them going to like 1 o'clock before they go too.
Yeah, I have to. I mean,